Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the May meeting of Cabinet. My name is Councillor Millie Earle, and I'm the Deputy Leader of the Council and Vice Chair of Cabinet. I'll be chairing this meeting today as Councillor Slade is away representing us at a national conference. Next to me is Councillor Richard Burton. He will be assisting me with chairing today's meeting. I'd like to welcome all the members of the public who are in the room with us today and who have given up their time, and of course the other councillors who are in the room and online. First of all, I'm going to hand over to Democratic Services Officer to go through the housekeeping for today's meeting.
Thank you. So please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of the building in Bourne Avenue. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I'd just like to add that as we have members of the public in the room today, that this meeting is held in public and is not a public meeting. So I'd like to request that members of the public remain silent throughout the meeting, apart from when invited to speak and give their submitted questions and statements. I'd also like to give the assurance to the members of the public that I intend to switch up the order of the meeting and bring item 10 on Poole Park forward on the agenda and deal with it first, so that you don't have to hang around for other items, although you are more than welcome to stay for the entirety of the meeting if you wish. So we move to agenda item 1, which is apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Vicky Slade, Leader of the Council, who I previously mentioned is away at conference this weekend. We also have apologies from Councillor David Brown, who is away having been invited to Buckingham Palace. Other than that, we're all present, although we have quite a lot to get through, and with engagements and events this afternoon, I'm hoping we can keep to time and get through everything before members have to leave for their next meetings. So item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. I haven't had any raised with me, but is there anything that we should be aware of? No, if any members of Cabinet do become aware of any throughout, just let me know. So agenda item 3 is the confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting of Cabinet. Can I get a proposer and a seconder for last month's minutes?
I'm quite happy to chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Richard Burton to propose, Councillor Andy Martin to second.
All right, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So agenda item 4 is public issues. We have had no petitions submitted from members of the public on this occasion. However, we have received one question on agenda item 13, which is the SEND progress update, re the SEND improvement plan and safety valve, and one question and 48 statements in relation to agenda item 10, which is the improvement of the environment in Poole Park through a trial closure of the park entrance to motor traffic. We have a 15-minute limit for this item of the agenda, but considering the number of statements for agenda item 10, I'd like to double that to 30 minutes to hear as many as possible as we can in that time frame. We will start though with questions from the public because they merit an answer from the responsible portfolio holder, whereas statements don't get an answer. However, we will likely refer to the points raised as part of the discussion and debate later on. I should also note that we have a lot of statements received where the member of the public has requested that they are read out by Sarah, Democratic Services Officer. So Sarah will make her way through as many as she can in that time. So they'll probably be read quite quickly. So public questions. The first one that we have is from Baker. Is S. Baker here today? No, in that case, can I ask it's read out by Sarah from Democratic Services?
Thank you. So the question, there are two parts to this question. Part one, is there a legality issue over BCP's approach to closing vehicular access before any consultation even took place? Poole Park was gifted to the people for the people, and when eventually the results of the consultation became available, I understand that 63% of the very high number of participants desired the vehicular entrance to remain open. Two, what authority does BCP have to ignore the result of their own consultation and pursuing this undemocratic approach? The people have spoken. Furthermore, I might add that as a daily user of the park, as a pedestrian and cyclist, I have never seen a single survey being conducted on the number of cars using the car parks or the number of cars travelling through, effectively using the park as a cut through. This should have been carried out before any consultation.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Hadley, I believe you have a response.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. On the legality issue, the original conveyance in March 1886 of the land which would become Poole Park was to the Corporation of Poole. This was, and I quote, for the land to be laid out and used as a public park and pleasure gardens for the benefit of the Borough of Poole and the inhabitants thereof. The management of the park from its inception has therefore been a matter for the authority to decide. Repeated surveys have highlighted that the significant flows of traffic on the carriageways through the park detract from the environment for leisure, the principal purpose of the park. There are 5 car parking areas with dedicated parking for those with disability and the ability to still use 2 vehicular entrances to drive into the park at Eastgate and Seldown entrance. In determining the best way to manage the park for the future, Cabinet needs to consider the results of the consultation alongside the other factors as outlined in the paper. It was made clear from the beginning of the process that the consultation was not a referendum. Representative democracy does not work that way. Indeed, the previous decision to reopen Keyhole Bridge was made against the weight of representations. On travel surveys, over the recent years, a number of surveys have been conducted in the park, including those referenced in Appendix 11 to the report, which were at the Seldown entrance. An all-day survey of vehicles on the 17th of May 2016 from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. On both Wednesday the 6th of September 2023 before the closure and Wednesday the 7th of February 2024 during the trial, there were counts of vehicles, pedestrians and cycle movements over the same 12-hour period, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The latter 2 surveys were conducted by video recording that was then reviewed and classified. The results show a significant reduction in motor traffic eastbound, especially between 4:30 and 6 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Now we move on to the next question, which is in relation to agenda item 13, which is on the SEND progress update. It is from Adam Sofianos. However, he is not here today and has nominated Mr. Alex McKinstry to ask it on his behalf. Alex, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. I actually had 2 questions from Mr. Sofianos, Chair. Can we just check that we've got 2 answers?
I can confirm that it is 2 questions given, but I think they are all going to be rolled into one answer.
Oh, I see. So I'll just read the whole thing then.
Please feel free to read the whole thing and
Hate to be awkward.
We'll put them together.
Okay. So the publication of performance data for SEND services is most welcome. As the Council begins a new improvement plan, it's essential that progress is visible to the most important stakeholders of all, the families. The scorecard contains data for March. Can the Council commit to publishing an update within the papers for June's Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting, showing the full data for April and May? Can the Council further commit to publishing a similar update for the committee's September meeting, showing data for June, July and August? Can these include the following key EHC data? Number and percentages of plans refused or declined, number and percentage of needs assessments refused or declined, number of assessments delayed over 30 weeks, number of assessments delayed over 50 weeks, and finally, can the Council confirm the relevant numbers for the above data during March? The second question, at February's full Council, members passed a motion in relation to safety valve. This compelled the council to write to the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, the Secretary of State for Education, and the Chair or Chief Executive of the Local Government Association, variously seeking an extension to the statutory override, additional financial assistance, and a collaborative approach to these issues across local government. Have these letters been sent? What responses has the council received, and how and when will the council publish these documents?
Thank you, Mr. McKinstry. Councillor Burton.
Thank you very much for reading that questions, all those questions, and thank you, Alex, as always for sending them. My answers here. What I'm trying to do is get the gist of what's wanting to know. My answer isn't a particularly polished answer on this occasion because I'm trying to get to the backstory of what the information is. Start off with the questions about the percentage of plans refused declined. Now, the actual numbers on this can be actually quite complicated in that several of them are not refused or declined, but they're changed by negotiation with the parents and carers. So an actual number there, we need a bit of detail behind it. The needs for future discussion. Refusal does not automatically mean they would not get service, and a decline can be with agreement with the parents' carers. So those numbers are available and I'll get them, but they need a story with it. The number of percentages, the number of assessment delayed over 30 weeks. We now have 70 families over 30 weeks, compared with 186 in September. This will all be completed by the end of this school term. The number of assessment delayed over 50 weeks, well, we don't do 50-week data, we do 52-week data. So at the 52 weeks, it was looking at so 52 weeks in April, 12, but we're working through to complete these by end of July. There are no delays this academic year. The council is looking at the relevant numbers of the above data in March, 100% in 6 weeks timelines for April. This has been in the 90% from September, and 84% timeless for 20 weeks, excluding a backlog. 61% 20 weeks, including the backlog. Now, the question about continuing with this data, I totally agree that getting this data out in a way that can be understandable to people is really important. At the moment, it is available through the Parent Carers Forum, but I think it needs to be able to be shared more widely, and looking at the best way of sharing that. Now, it's asked about updating for children's ONS, and there will be some updates available for the next ONS meeting. Looking at the autumn meeting, what goes to children's ONS is actually they choose, the chair and the committee choose. So I can't say you need to have this data at the committee, but I will commit to getting that data available so people can access it without it having to go through children's ONS. So the letters, I can confirm that these letters were sent by the leader of the council, and to date we have received a response from the chair of the LGA. At this time, no other replies have been received. The letter will be published as part of the leaders' report in the June council meeting on Tuesday, the 4th of June, by which time we hope to have a response from all 3 letters.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. So we're going to move on to statements, and just to reassure you, that was a very thorough answer to those questions, which was needed, and we're not going to include that in the amount of time of that 30 minutes that we've got for public issues, just so we can get through as many statements as possible. So we're going to take the statements in order of which they were received by Democratic Services. It may be that we don't get through them all, but I can confirm they have all been circulated to Cabinet in advance of this meeting, and they will also be recorded in the minutes. So let's have a look at our first statement. Sarah.
Thank you. Statement number 1 comes from a resident of BCP. I watched the debate around Poole Park at Scrutiny Group and would like to suggest a compromise for consideration. Some councillors are concerned about making a decision contrary to the public consultation. With legal threats and public feeling high, this is understandable. Concerns about interference and misinformation during the consultation are also valid. My proposal is twofold. 1, reopen the gate to one-way, leaving traffic between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. in a second trial. This should include logging of traffic and any conflict between park staff and drivers. 2, set up a citizens' assembly to review the impact, cost and benefits of different options to report back to the council with a recommendation. This will delay a final decision further, but this could be a long-term solution that improves the park for all people and protects the council from costly legal action and rebuilds public trust. Statement number 2 is from Lucy Allen. It is hugely disappointing that following the ONS meeting, which was flooded with statements from the public, ward members and officers in favour of making the Whitecliffe Park gate closure permanent, that the committee recommend the decision be passed to full council. It is absurd that a non-key decision, one which could have been officer made, would even be considered by full council. The level of scrutiny at ONS was minimal, with most ward members giving opinions rather than looking at the recommendation based on BCP's adopted policies. Preserving a scenic drive, increasing traffic in a park, or being concerned about the optics of a flawed consultation result is not in any of BCP's policy documents. Creating cleaner, greener and more pleasant green spaces is. Please make this decision at Cabinet in line with the officer's recommendation and report. Number 3 is from Tess Baker. Given that Poole Park was donated to the people in the late 1800s by Lord Wimborne, I would question whether BCP Council had any legal right to close the gate to vehicular access before public consultation. As a daily user of the park, both pedestrian and cyclist, firstly, I have never encountered a speeding vehicle. Drivers stop for geese and ducks, and I've never noted any traffic surveys being carried out. What surveys have taken place during the council to decide immediate closure of the entrance without any public consultation? When the results of the public consultation came in, I understand 63% of people desired the vehicular access to remain open, yet the entrance remains closed. This is not democracy and is not acceptable. Number 4, statement from Kay Chambers. I write in support of the closure of Poole Park to through traffic. It is such a delight to have the space free from the noise, fumes, pollution and risk of vehicular movements. It was originally gifted for people's leisure, enjoyment and relaxation, and the change that has been made supports this. Please retain Poole Park as it is now for people, plants and wildlife, not cars. Number 5 is a statement from David Colpman. As a Parkstone resident in the 2023 election, I actively voted for candidates who put the environment first and was delighted to see Emily Harman and Crispin Goodall elected. The councillor most associated with supporting the reopening of Keyhole Bridge and others standing on anti-LTN/pro-car manifestos saw their vote collapse. Electors knew what they were doing. The mandate of the Cabinet to keep the gate closed without reference to council is clear and is supported by significant majorities of residents actively engaged over the gate closure by Emily and Crispin. I have similar findings from interacting with people in the park. The evidence is clear. Returning the park to a Parkstone Sandbanks Road bypass would be against the wishes of your voters, park users and local residents. The next statement is from Sue Smith.
Thank you, Sarah. Sue Smith, would you mind coming up and just using the microphone? There's a little button on the front to speak.
The closure is in line with local and national policy and the Council's own LC whip. An independent disability audit found no disadvantage to people with disabilities, and fears over traffic congestion have proved unfounded. A consultation has been run and the pros and cons of the closure have been analysed. The consultation report recognises the concerns of residents and the Council has the ability to address these in final planning. Some opposition councillors have chosen to turn this policy and evidence-led decision into an emotive issue, hence the recommendation that the decision be referred to full council. The recommendation was made on the basis of the number of responses for and against the closure, but as both councillors and residents are aware, this is a consultation, not a referendum. Residents on both sides have been calling for a prompt decision and will be disappointed by any further delay.
Thank you, Ms Smith. I'm going to go back to Sarah to continue statements.
So number 7 is a statement from John Carter. I was surprised to hear the matter of the Poole Park Gate closure may be referred to full council. The closure is supported by numerous local and national policies, and I can find nothing in the way of policy that suggests we should have traffic driving through the park. It would appear to be a clear-cut choice between doing something that aligns with the council's long-term aims or doing something that is contrary to those aims. In a survey on the council's vision, priorities and key objectives, 78% of residents agreed that place and environment should be one of the council's priorities. The decision to keep the gate closed to protect the environment in Poole Park is very clear, and referring it to full council merely delays that decision. Number 8 is a statement from Judy Windwood. Members are elected to make decisions based on approved policy for the good of the area. The report states the benefits of closing the gate. This was generally ignored. Members must not be distracted by insecure consultation which did not require names and addresses. It was not a referendum. Around 1980, we lived near the park in a terraced house with a small garden and 2 young children. The park was my walking route to town and our playground. It was a different place then, fewer vehicles. The closure returns part of the park to this state. I remind members it's a park, not a highway. If people want a pleasant journey from work, I suggest they enjoy a walk in the park or try walking, cycling or taking a bus to work. Statement number 9 is from Ross Hodder. I listened with interest to the ONS meeting regarding the Whitecliffe Gate trial. Despite some concern expressed around disabled access and possible increase in traffic on surrounding roads, it was reassuring to hear that vehicular access to the car parks is unchanged and there has been virtually no impact to traffic outside the park. The remaining argument, therefore, is focused around whether access to a scenic drive outweighs the improvements to environment and safety. To me, there is no comparison between the use of valuable public green space as a convenient shortcut with views and the safety and well-being of all other park users. Last year, I stopped cycling through the park with my son to the dolphin swimming pool because of the high level of through traffic. But now, following the Whitecliffe closure, it is safe for families to use. I support accepting the officer report recommendation. Statement 10 from Russell Trent. I am writing in support of the permanent closure of Poole Park's Whitecliffe Gate to motorised traffic and to also call for Cabinet to make the decision either way on this matter. I do not agree that it should go to full council. This is a minor change to the operation of a park and a decision that could have been taken by an officer. We elect members to shape and determine policy, and if BCP Council is committed to protecting green spaces and encouraging active travel, it should agree with me that the closure is aligned to BCP policy. I visit the park regularly with my children, sometimes in car, mostly on the bus, but we visit the park as a destination, not as a means to get elsewhere in the borough. Parks should not be used to alleviate motorised traffic elsewhere. Number 11, statement from Gary Livermore. I am writing in my support for the permanent closure of the Whitecliffe Poole Park Gate. Closure of the gate aligns with BCP Council policies to reduce traffic, especially so in Poole Park. The park is much more pleasant without the constant stream of through traffic. One of my older family members, who has mobility issues, can still access all areas of the park as she did with her late husband, but in a more peaceful surroundings, remembering the walks they had together. A park is a place to enjoy the tranquility and should not be used as a relief road for traffic elsewhere. I find the park environment is much more pleasant to walk around now through traffic has been stopped. Our green spaces should be protected for future generations. Our elected members need to ensure their decision aligns with BCP Council policies. Number 12 is a statement from David Foote. I find it ridiculous that you're still perusing the closing off the road in Poole Park. I live and work in Poole. You're adding 20 minutes onto my motorcycle ride home with the increased traffic and danger to cyclists and motorcyclists, creeping along the inside and outside of traffic, let alone the fuel used in your stupidity attempt making a difference. I can only presume members of the council live on or around this route, very much like Camphor Cliffs, that I understand more speed cameras are to be installed. I requested speed humps and or cameras down Princess Road. That's a fast rat run and was told until a fatality happens, nothing will be done. I have saved that email and will send it to the Bournemouth Echo and the family of who this may affect. Shame on you for not listening to your constituents. Number 13 is a statement from Eleanor Pałgowski. I'm writing to say that I'm appalled that the wishes of the majority of people, 63%, who took the time to answer with well thought out researched answers, the consultation survey, requesting that the park remain open, are not being listened to. This makes a mockery of any future consultation survey. We were originally told months ago that the closure would be for a month as the consultation took place. That was not true. It is now obvious that the reopening of the park was never an option. This must not be allowed to happen. The park must be reopened in accordance with the consultation results. Number 14 is a statement from a resident of BCP. I'm a full-time pool-borne wheelchair user, spent lots of time in Pool Park. I don't drive and avoid car use, but understand a car is sometimes necessary. I don't understand the anger about this. The arguments against the closure are nonsensical. Turning a car or pulling out of a gate isn't a problem for anyone safe to drive. I suffer with fatigue, but would never want to be driven through a park without stopping. The whole point of a park is that it's somewhere to spend time, not a drive-through. It isn't McDonald's. Driving out the gate you entered is normal when visiting somewhere by car. Visiting is now a delight. There's bird song, not the rumble of cars. I've been visiting more since the gate closed. It's back to being a people's park.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll give you a little rest whilst we have Susan Stockwell in the room, who's going to come and read her statement.
Yesterday, I visited Pool Park at dusk on foot via Whitecliff Road Gate. The first sight which greeted me was a group of young women, relaxed, happy and laughing, enjoying travelling along the car-free stretch of road towards the gate on hire scooters. A stark contrast indeed to the dire warnings of women, including myself, being too frightened to visit Pool Park without the guardianship of passing motor vehicles. Improved natural surveillance, reducing crime when cycling and walking increases and vehicle use decreases, is so well proved by LTN low traffic neighbourhood data that police elsewhere have supported keeping them. My own criminology training was that a statement from a cyclist or pedestrian is needed to secure a conviction, e.g. for street crime or burglary, as the view from a car is simply not good enough to stand up in court. Dashcams tend to be trained on other motorists, not pedestrians.
Thank you, Mrs. Stockwell. We're going to go back to Sarah to continue with the statements.
So statement 16 comes from Malcolm Bebb. I'm a poor householder since 1985. I welcome the restriction of through traffic in Pool Park, having found the environment more pleasant in recent visits, especially in the southern parts. I firmly believe that the park should be a peaceful destination where traffic disturbance should be minimal to maximise enjoyment and safety for park users. I further believe that using the park as a relief from traffic congestion around the Civic Centre area is the wrong approach. Traffic congestion should be addressed at the source, and using a public leisure park as a relief road is neither a sustainable nor a credible solution. Instead, it draws attention away from the need to resolve congestion issues while doing little to reduce them. Statement 17 is from the Thompson family. Please reopen the gate with immediate effect as per the majority consultation response. My 93-year-old relative, Parkstone Road, enjoys the park. Not registered disabled, we drive through, stopping when possible, sometimes walking, sometimes simply the drive is soothing. Our inability to take scenic drives we used to is affecting well-being. Since the closure, 1, more traffic caught in turning in the park, more fumes. 2, significant queues. 3, conflict by disabled spaces. 4, increased traffic, difficulty getting to nursery, leisure centre. 5, significant traffic, Parkstone Road. 6, queues towards Lilliput. 7, fast cyclists, scooters, motorbikes in through park. 8, increase in youth loitering, smashing glass. The closure makes no logical sense and is not backed by need or data. This issue is making the council unpopular when voter support is essential. The council can recover this by applying common sense, reverse the decision. Number 18 is a statement from Sophie Clegg. Since the closure, I cycle with my kids through the park to after-school lessons at the pool and dolphin centre. Once we're over Sandbanks Road, we're passed by a handful of cars all the way to town, cycling down Orchard Avenue and through the park. It's so easy that we consistently choose to cycle. Previously, we would be passed by a steady stream of vehicles all along this route. Cycling with kids in traffic is stressful, and with bad weather or kids' mood or behaviour, it often didn't feel safe enough, and we'd normally hop in the car. Closing the gate has not prevented people from driving into the park, but reopening the gate would remove this safe route, denying us this choice and putting journeys like ours back into the car. Please keep the gate closure and keep the park safe and accessible to all modes of travel for everyone. Number 19 is a statement from Jane Foote. My family have lived by the Whitecliffe Gate entrance for a great many years. Driving through the park back to our house has been convenient, pleasant and quicker for us when returning from the west. We were therefore sceptical about the gate closure and were initially against it. However, we are now enjoying the benefits of less traffic, not only outside our house, but also whilst walking our dog and sitting in our garden. We now fully appreciate the reasons behind the gate closure and totally support it. While our drive home is now a little longer, we believe that residents deserve a more peaceful and pleasant experience when using the park. The gate closure has made walking in the park feel safer. I now even cycle into Poole Town Centre, which I never used to. I hope that Cabinet makes the right decision to close the gate permanently. Number 20, statement from Simon Dunsby. I should like to say that Poole Park is a park, not a rat run. My parents took me there in the 80s and now take my children there. The grandparents in their late 70s and children feel safer without cars using the park as a road. Number 21 is from Brian Bowman. In addition to this being a waste of taxpayers' money, I take great offence at a public space being shut off to anybody who has the great misfortune to no longer have easy mobility or ability to get in and out of a car easily. My late father was immobile, and one of the few pleasures he had in life was being able to drive through Poole Park, through to Whitecliffe, and have a scenic tour without the stress of having to get his wheelchair out of the car.
Thank you, Sarah. The next statement is from Ian Lawrence, who I believe is here in person. Mr. Lawrence.
Morning, everyone. 3,388, 63%. A majority want Twemlow Gate reopened as it adds mileage, delay, congestion, pollution, while hitting car-dependent, old, frail, young families, would-be tourists and park livelihoods. Proving closure's environmental improvement requires before and after evidence, but lacked water purity, noise, air quality, business takings, road traffic accidents, or impact on wildlife measurements. Invalidating continued closing. DOTS investigated only 6 disabled regulars, not BCP's disabled thousands. Findings were statistically irrelevant, unrepresentative, invalidating closure conclusions. Traffic sensors, once in September and once in February, couldn't identify trends as data was too sparse. Councillor Hadley incorrectly asserted the majority wanted the gate closed, despite 2/3 of consultees who didn't, and that 600 who omitted postcodes voted multiple times for reopening. He recommended the assumed wealthy old and disabled who supported car access go to Hengistbury Head. He rejected afternoon-only closure as extra staffing costs, while favouring new roundabout and parking. Conclusion. Closure's environmental improvement trial unproved. So please listen to the majority and open the gate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. We're going to go back to Sarah.
So statement number 23 comes from Lee Atkins. I'm emailing you in regards to the above and to state my utter disgust in what has been happening in and around Poole, with all of these roads being narrowed for cycle lanes, roads closed for LTNs, etc. But more importantly, the closing of the park for vehicles driving through. BCP had a consultation which shows the residents wanting it open, but no, Councillor Hadley wants his way and will ignore what residents want and just do it. I'm emailing Democratic Services. We'll be democratic about Poole Park and adhere to what residents want, the park open for all. Number 24 is a statement from Anne Jacobs. The closure of this gate is unnecessary and detrimental to the mental health and well-being of both my elderly and disabled parents. Trying to drive through now is dangerous as the exit is obstructed, sometimes gridlocked, causing a safety access issue in an emergency. I am physically unable to push mum or mother-in-law in a wheelchair, and as an unpaid carer, taking them out for a drive is one of the few small treats I can provide. The park is unique in this area for this purpose. Just close the gate to traffic at around 4 p.m. as you do until 10 a.m. to stop the rat run. As a council, your duty is to serve the taxpayer, and the results of your own consultation has clearly given you directive. Please reopen this gate. Number 25 is a statement from Daniel Glennon. Poole Park is, as its name suggests, a public park. Public parks should be a place for urban residents that spend time in nature, which studies have shown is beneficial for mental health, for children to play, for people to exercise, and for encouraging nature. They should not be through routes for traffic. It's ludicrous that this closure didn't happen much sooner. BCP has awful congestion and very poor air quality. For far too long, the needs of car drivers have been placed first in our urban planning. It is time to redesign our towns for people, not cars. The closure of the gate in Poole Park should be the first measure of many to reduce car dependency in BCP, to benefit the physical and mental health of all residents, not just the vocal motorists. We need to encourage cycling, walking, and wider use of public transport. Number 26 comes from Gerald Andrews. I have lived here for over 62 years and have loved being able to drive through Poole Park via Keyhole Bridge, the model yacht lake, past the miniature train waving to passengers and on through. This enabled me to relax mentally. I do not have time to stop. You have now prohibited me from doing this. The park is designed so people could drive through. In fact, in the 1930s, motor speed trials were held in the park. There have never been any accidents. Car drivers I've seen are always courteous and adhere to the speed limit. There is chaos at the only exit with regular Mexican standoffs. Gates open so everyone can enjoy the park, especially people like me who feel better when we can drive through it. Thank you for reading my letter. Statement from Carol Norman. I'm writing to express my support for reopening the Whitecliff Gate at Poole Park. Maintaining vehicle access is crucial. The park provides essential green space that is particularly beneficial for the mental health of residents, especially the elderly and disabled. Continuous access through the park ensures they can easily reach different areas without undue physical strain. For those experiencing a meltdown, the ability to drive directly through the park offers a safety valve, providing a calming environment without unnecessary detours. The closure has led to increased traffic and emissions on surrounding roads as vehicles are forced to navigate around the park, contradicting environmental goals. The 63% of residents who favour reopening the gates highlights the community's preference for accessible, inclusive and environmentally conscious use of the park. I urge the Council to respect the consultation results and reopen the gates for the benefit of all. Number 28 is a statement from Mary Scott. I urge you to reconsider the closure of Whitecliff Gate in Poole Park. The recent consultation clearly shows that 63% of residents want the gates to remain open. Ignoring this majority opinion would undermine the democratic process and trust in local governance. The closure has created daily chaos, with buses getting stuck and causing significant disruption at the only exit. While cyclists benefit, they often travel at speeds greater than cars, posing hazards to pedestrians. See Regent's Park accident. Addressing the climate emergency requires more strategic investments, enhancing public transport facilities and creating better connectivity for all forms of transport would be far more effective. Closing a gate is not a productive solution. The Council should serve the community's interest, not its own. For the benefit of the community, please listen to the majority and reopen Whitecliff Gate to vehicles. 29 is a statement from Sebastian Norman Andrews. I am writing to you because I want to tell you why Poole Park should stay open to cars. I like the drive through Poole Park because it makes for a nicer journey. This is really important to me because I have severe anxiety, and driving through the park helps me feel calm and safe. I really like the views in the park. They are pretty and make me feel happy. It is also a safe and familiar journey for me and my family. We have always driven through the park and it is part of our routine. I hope you will listen to us and keep the gates open so everyone can enjoy the park, especially people like me who feel better when we can drive through it. Number 30 is a statement from Eunice Marsden. The BCP consultation is very widely believed to contain bias towards the outcome desired by those in control of it. Despite this, the outcome clearly showed the will of the people to reopen the gate. The officer report does its best to conceal this clear fact by suggesting that some age groups should have less weight put to their views than others and using differing graph techniques to play down the clear but unwanted result. Poole Park is the town park and is also named the People's Park when given to the people by Lord Wimborne. The people have spoken about their park and want the gate fully reopened. The choice is support the portfolio holder and BCP officer or support the will of the people you represent by sending this decision to full council for decision. Number 31 is a statement from Claire Leahy. I appreciate the consultation was not a vote, but I feel it is undemocratic if the council ignore the views of the consultation and keep the Whitecliffe Gate closed. It will undermine faith in councillors who were elected to serve the people of BCP. Whilst blue badge holders still have full access, you have currently removed the prettiest part of the park from people needing to enjoy it by car, such as the ill or frail. The portfolio holder appears unwilling to consider compromise, including the gate closing early, which would be cost minimal and also negate the alleged rat run rush hour. Closure will bring little benefit in reducing pollution due to heavy traffic already nearby. It is not to stop car pedestrian accidents. There have been none and appears simply a vindictive act forced on people due to disgruntlement over the Keyhole Bridge debacle. Number 32 is a statement from Sarah Morgan. Please respect the numbers as responded by residents in your survey. They have provided lived experiences through this process and by direct letters, not perceptions. The survey clearly identifies protected minority groups by age and ability as protected from discrimination by the Equality Act 2010. Please do not exclude them. Please do not base decisions on perceptions, absent data and inappropriate comparisons. Please do not decide because of approval of other internal infrastructure items irrelevant to the gate access. Please listen to your electorate. Number 33 is a statement from Julia Wild. There are no problems specific to the gate in Poole Park that have or will be solved by its closure. Indeed, closing it has actually created problems. Making people double back and go the long way round the park has increased fuel usage. It also increases fumes, causes stress and anxiety for drivers and passengers, and takes away the sheer pleasure of our beautiful park for far too many people, especially the disabled. The sea air blows fumes away. Moving traffic to Parkstone Road simply concentrates fumes in other areas. As for safety, drivers routinely slow down for ducks, swans and geese. What an ideal environment in which to teach youngsters how to cross the road safely. Cyclists who don't ring bells, ride too fast and on the pavements are a far greater threat. The people have voted via the consultation. Is anyone listening? 34 is a statement from Ian Clark. In documents regarding the trial gate closure, the Heritage Fund grant expenditure, the council stated aims to improve safety within the park, yet the following failings are evident. Speed limit signage is inadequate, with only one circular sign on a lamppost at the Kingland Road entrance, none at the Civic Centre entrance, and no road markings between them. Any signage at the closed Whitecliffe Gate is ineffectual. Following resurfacing, the new speed humps are not as effective as the previous ones. To leave the disabled parking areas inside the Whitecliffe Gate, cars need to execute a multiple point turn, and care home and disabled minibuses no longer use that section. Antisocial behaviour could rise with no passing cars. With only one car exit into Kingland Road, there could be serious congestion. Drivers may be completely unaware of any speed limit, so safety aspects have not been adequately considered. Statement 35 is from Anthony Winter. I do not consent to this closure due to the impact this could have on many people's well-being, especially my own. I used to drive to Poole Park to meet friends and walk my dog, then proceeding down to the beach for a walk. This was a route I would take with my late wife when she was in the later stages of her care, and I'm no longer able to relive these memories, which I find extremely upsetting. As such, I no longer visit Poole Park. This closure will have had similar impact to many of us elderly and disabled residents of BCP, and we feel completely discriminated against by BCP Council. Statement 36 comes from Sharon Hunt. In recent years, Poole Park speed restrictions were increased and effective traffic calming reduced. Had the opposite action been taken, traffic flow by those wishing to save time would have reduced. Those who historically used the park as a pleasant driving route would have been the only users. My late father-in-law, in his last frail weeks of life as the founder of North Haven Yacht Club, would enjoy us driving him around sandbanks. On the way back, his request would be, drive me through the park. Many have similar stories. The gate closure leaves people unable to use the park for this type of purpose, which is incredibly important to them. Some have requested that when their time comes, they would like the park to be part of their final journey. Denying people this right is unfair and bordering on cruelty.
Thank you to Democratic Services. That was a lot of reading, but we are now at the 30 minutes and we've made our way through. I think we were at 36 comments out of the 48. We will move on from there, but just to reassure again that all of the statements that were submitted have been circulated and will be considered in our decision making. And thank you for those who came along, and I'm sorry if you didn't get your chance to give your statement in person. So we're going to move on now to agenda item 5, which is recommendations from Overview and Scrutiny Board and the committees that are not otherwise on the agenda. Councillor Bartlett, I can see you're online. Do you have any items from Overview and Scrutiny Board that are not on the agenda?
I don't, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Can I check with Councillor Rigby, who is from Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee? Thank you, Councillor Rigby. We also have Councillor Canavan, who is Chair of Health Overview and Scrutiny. Oh, I was looking on the screen. Thank you. And Councillor Dove from Children's isn't in the room. Thank you. So, as I said earlier, we move on to the decision-making part of our agenda. I'd like to bring forward item 10, which is the improvement of environment in Poole Park for a trial closure of the park entrance to motor traffic. This is going to be proposed and presented by Councillor Hadley. Do we have a seconder?
I'll happily second, Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Over to you, Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. We covered a lot of detail in the Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee last week. Poole Park has been closed to motorised traffic before 10 AM since the 1980s, and Kings Park and Merrick Park were both entirely closed to through traffic over 20 years ago. Appendix 9 shows the original conveyance in March 1886 to the Borough of Poole, which defines the original primary use to be managed as a park and a pleasure ground. We have carefully studied the consultation responses and the many items of correspondence from those keen to ensure their views were heard, including the 26 statements to Overview and Scrutiny and the 47 statements today. All of these have been carefully reviewed, but this was never billed as a referendum or the only consideration for the authority. When Keyhole Bridge was set to be reopened, the majority feedback of 82% from the public was to keep it shut, and this was overruled by then Councillor Mike Green based on his view of the needs of traffic around the park. The responses to consultation this time around are very polarised, reflecting the campaign that's been undertaken and the really strong feelings that the public have about this space. The importance of outdoor leisure space and changing work and leisure patterns have been highlighted during and since the COVID pandemic. The pressures on our urban parks will only increase, especially as there are an increasing number of flats across the whole area with no or limited outdoor space. This puts more reliance on our main parks for leisure, especially on Poole Park. This is not just about suiting the residents living immediately adjacent to the park, but enhancing the place as a leisure destination for all visitors. Those coming from the east can park alongside the modal boat area or in Cops Close car park, or enter via the east or Seldown gates. There are in particular a range of dedicated parking bays throughout the park for use by the disabled. If you go to any outdoor leisure attraction, the traffic and parking is managed to reduce its impact on the enjoyment of the space. Much of Poole Park is taken up by the moating lake, and the through traffic has come to dominate the remainder. It is important to set this change within the policy context of the Council. The BCP corporate strategy includes a vibrant place where people and nature flourish. Our green spaces flourish and support the well-being of both people and nature. The green infrastructure strategy prioritises healthy living and well-being, resilience to climate change, nature recovery, economic recovery, prosperity and placemaking. Public Health Dorset support and positive comments in the papers about well-being. The local cycling and walking infrastructure improvement plan was also mentioned, and the park features within that. There has been a long-standing ambition to reduce the impact of vehicles in Poole Park dating back to the 1990s, which is supported in a master plan from that time. Chair, given the extensive debate at the Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee and comments from several members of that committee highlighting that they were from other towns and not really familiar with the park, I do not think that this simple change warrants a full council debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Just to confirm, we have got some councillors in the room and online who aren't members of Cabinet. So the process that we usually go through next is to call on the relevant chair of the Scrutiny Committee to see whether they would like to add anything. We then go to other councillors for them to have their say. There is a limit of 3 minutes, as otherwise we will run out of time. Once everyone has said their bit, we'll then go to Cabinet for a discussion and for any amendments to be debated, and then for a decision by a majority vote. So this item went to Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee last week. The recommendation from that committee has been published alongside the papers for this meeting, but I would like to invite Councillor Rigby up to address Cabinet on their recommendations.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, I'll try and be fairly brief. I know you were in the room while we were having this meeting last week, and I'm sure it's been seen by many of the Cabinet members as well. So we had a good debate on this. We had a lot of public engagement, and I expressed at the time, and I'll do so again, that if we had this much public engagement on every issue which we brought to Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny, I'd be very, very happy. So I really welcome people coming in and asking questions and making statements. The main debate which we had through that, I think, has been heard by a lot of the public statements today. It was either should people enjoy a scenic drive, or can people go using it as a rat run and you can still have a scenic drive, because there's what is intended to do with that stretch of road which is closed from the Whitecliff Gate coming down is not actually closed to disabled access and parking at the moment. That was an issue which came up. We also discussed the experiences of the various councillors in the room and who also came as well, and their use of the park as well. I won't go into great detail on that. What I will do is we did have one recommendation which came out of the debate, and that was to refer this matter to full Cabinet for decision. That was supported by 6 members voting for, 1 against and 2 abstentions. The reason that was put forward was that it should have further engagement with more councillors being able to be involved. We didn't actually debate that because there seemed to be some agreement in the room that that would be the decision. So there was no further debate on why anyone voted against this or abstained on it. I know you've got a lot to get through, so I think I'm happy leaving it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rigby. We will be sure to address that recommendation as part of our debate. Now, we also have councillors in the room who would like to speak on this item. I think I've got Councillor Harman, any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Bartlett, I'll make a note of your name. Oh gosh, we've got a few. Councillor Chapman-Law and Councillor Canavan. So let's start with Councillor Harman.
With respect, Madam Vice Chairman, Councillor Butt, I have also asked to speak, and I'm in the room. I have not been acknowledged. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Butt. I will add you to the list.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chairman.
Councillor Harman.
Thank you, Chair. At last week's Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny meeting, I spoke about how much Councillor Goodall and I have done to actively engage with Parkstone residents on this divisive issue and encourage them to take part in the consultation process. And it was hoped that through this process, I would have a clear mandate on how to best proceed in representing the views of residents across Parkstone Ward, yet I don't. It remains a topic that people feel both passionately and polarised about. The consultation showed largely strong views were held, and this has been our experience across the ward as well. On the doorstep, I've spoken to a large number of people in disbelief that the council would think twice about reopening the Whitecliff access point, given what they deem to be the obvious benefits to all park users. I've also had many recent conversations with residents who strongly share the view that given 63% of responses to the consultation want the gate reopened, democracy must therefore prevail. And I genuinely wish it were that simple. As has been pointed out by many, and on both sides, there have been flaws in this consultation process. I've had people tell me that they have filled in the consultation several times, and I've also spoken to people whose opinion has changed since they filled it in, either because they have legitimately changed their minds since experiencing the closure, and there have been quite a number of these, and I know one of the statements from the public earlier mentioned that as well, or that they first filled it in based on what they later found out to be incorrect information or assumptions. And I'm really, really pleased that the Overview and Scrutiny Board have identified that there are currently serious issues surrounding the consultation process as a whole, and will be looking in the next few months at how future consultations across the 3 towns can be improved to ensure they are meaningful, robust, and reliable as they absolutely should be. And I want to let the residents of Parkstone know that I hear them. I hear clearly the passionate voices of those that want the gate reopened as they ask why the council want to fix something they do not believe is broken. And I empathise with those who feel their enjoyment of the park has been taken away from them. I also hear those that have embraced the closure, a move that many feel is a long time coming. And I recognise also that there are a large number of residents, both young and old, able-bodied and those less abled, that have benefited from the increased peace, safety, and freedom that the trial closure has ushered in. It's fair to say that the views across Parkstone are incredibly mixed, and I do not envy you, Cabinet, your decision today. However, I do know and I trust that whatever decision is made, it won't be made lightly and it won't be made in ignorance. I implore you to consider all of the evidence before you. I know that all members of Cabinet take the role you've been elected to carry out incredibly seriously, and that you recognise the heightened level of public feeling on this particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harman. I have just had a look, and of course, Councillor Butt, you requested to speak, so I'm going to actually go to you next. So, Councillor Butt, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chairman. The recommendation in front of you is from the Environment and Place Scrutiny Committee that this matter go to Council. That's the recommendation in front of you with regard to this item today. And I am amazed, firstly, to hear from Councillor Hadley that regrettably he doesn't feel that there is enough interest in this matter that warrants this going to full Council, where we've just heard from Councillor Harman, who was most emotive in her application and fair and balanced in what she said, that there are 76 members and we all represent a ward. The consultation was, I believe, BCP wide. Therefore, we should all be able to speak on this matter because it is of joint and several interest to all ward members who represent their residents. Council is definitely a place for this matter. It is the democratic imperative that all elected members are able to speak on behalf of their representatives. That's why we have elections. Unfortunately, this whole matter has been made extremely emotive and complex. It has become inaccurate. We've heard about the risk factors with regard to surveys being filled in many times, with regard to people filling in surveys who are not domiciled in BCP and therefore skewing the figures, which in fairness could skew the figures either way. I'm not speaking for or against this particular item. I'm speaking on behalf of my residents in Creekmore and the greater good. Therefore, as I said, in fairness, it could be that if these figures were so massaged, we've heard that risk, that we could have had 63% who actually were saying close the park or close the entrance. We don't know. And we're not able to interrogate properly, even though we spent an awful lot of money having a consultation or consultees coming in to give us further evidence based on the statistics, because the first statistics were not able to be interpreted appropriately. One thing which really concerns me is with the consultation process, consultation isn't just write up a survey, pop it out and then get back people's views and ignore it. That's not how it works. How it works is you engage first. We have an engagement policy. It's very long and it's a process to have got that. It's a very succinct policy and it works. It's been wholly ignored. What I believe and what we know should have happened, what certainly the public feel should have happened, is that we should have asked the public, how are we going to engage with you on this? What questions should we be asking you? What are your thoughts as to how we engage in the first place? Then we engage, then we consult, and then we use that consultation. This consultation is not the people's, as Councillor Hadley said, he felt it was people's sentiments that were coming back. These aren't sentiments. The public are not stupid. They are a sophisticated group of people who, with arguments on both sides, are saying how they feel about something, and we should consider these and not just put them down to sentiment. My further concern is the absolute way in which this is unprecedented. I've been a councillor 26 years. I've never known interest in such a small matter. Now, it's not small to the public, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is in the run of things, when we're talking about multi-million-pound budgets, this is a tiny matter, but there is massive interest. Therefore, I have stated all the reasons before scrutiny when I attended. There were 7 or 8 reasons as to why things needed to be reconsidered. My main concern is that the consultation itself is inherently flawed and it should therefore be redone. However, what should happen in the first instance is this matter needs to go to the Council for debate as recommended by your Overview and Scrutiny Committee, whom I hope you will heed.
Councillor Butt, sorry to interrupt, but
I'm nearly finished. I have nearly finished. Thank you so much for your patience. I would like this, please, to be sent to Council to decide on this proposal, as it's been proven beyond doubt as how important it is to the public per se, whether for or against with regard to the closure of this entrance. Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Vice Chairman. I'm extremely grateful for you hearing me today. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Councillor Butt. Right, we're going to go to Councillor Bartlett, followed by Councillor Canavan, and then Councillor Chapman-Law. So, Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, good morning, Vice Chair. All I would say is that I do agree with Councillor Butt. We have an Overview and Scrutiny Committee for a purpose. The matter was debated at length and in detail, and the overall majority, and it was a large majority, voted to recommend that this matter go to full council. Don't deny them that the opportunity, given that that's a democratic process. We should not ignore the recommendations of all the work that committee has done on this matter. So for that point only, I would say that it must go to full council. Otherwise, if it doesn't, I fear the outcome is already predetermined by this cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Canavan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this opportunity. I didn't know, obviously, coming into this meeting, whether Cabinet would agree to the recommendation from Overview and Scrutiny to go to full council. So I didn't know whether I was going to get the opportunity to make the comments that I'm about to make. Paragraph 51 of the paper says that consultation that has been carried out in relation to this is in line with established practice and procedures. I just want to make the point that was made at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee that if that's the case, then those established practices and procedures really need to be looked at again. This consultation is really clumsy, and I made that comment before about other processes that this council has undertaken. We have got to get that right, because we're not. But the other thing that concerns me, having watched the debate at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, was I think one of the difficulties was that in terms of the access, especially around access for elderly and disabled or those with limited mobility, those answers were not, those questions were really not answered, and that in the options set out at paragraph 42B, talks about further design and costings would need to be done for disabled spaces and vehicle turning. And then paragraph 60, when it talks about the risk assessment, it talks about 2 things. One is about the fact that that design is unfunded, and therefore nobody could get, those residents that were making the comments about this issue were not able to get any clarity about what was intended around that design and what was going to happen in order to ensure that their access could be established and protected. So that I think was unfortunate, to say the least. But I think the other issue that also comes out of the risk assessments is the reputational damage. And if I'm blunt, Chair, I think it's too late. because the way in which this has been carried out has already caused reputational damage to this authority, and I think that's really very unfortunate. In terms of where we go from here, you know, as we see here today, that gate is still closed. There has been a trial about access, you know, with the intention of trying to prevent through traffic, which is fine, but none of the other options that have been highlighted in the paper have been looked at, so they haven't been trialled.
Councillor Canavan, we're just getting to the end of your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I am concerned that those other options haven't been trialled. For example, the point has been made in representations about the timed closure. That hasn't really been looked at. Seems to have been very quickly dismissed in the paper. So I am concerned, and I think there is an advantage in having this debated at full council, simply because there is a time then to review those points and to make further comments at the full council meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan. Right, I have Councillor Chapman-Law.
Thank you very much. One question we need to answer: in what circumstances is it okay to drive through a park? And can we facilitate those without costing millions and at the same time stopping the rat running that the figures clearly show is happening? The short answer: there isn't one. You can still drive through the park. I did it the other day. Drive in from the Civic Centre and out through Selden. Myself and others who have shown support for the closure have been abused, attacked, intimidated online for our views on the closure. I have seen examples of strawman, whataboutery, personal attacks, and claims that this is just the beginning and of the supposed goal to close the park to cars completely. All designed not to engage in debate, but to suppress it. Everyone is entitled to their view, but it must be accompanied by meaningful discussion without personal attacks. I'm here today to speak on behalf of those who want to see the gate stay closed. It is true that a large number of submissions for the consultation wanted it to be reopened. However, the goals of a decent proportion of those people wanting to have the park open are those as a through route appear to not be interested in using the park as it is intended to be used, that is, a park. Instead, they seem to want to use it as a diversion to avoid congestion elsewhere. I believe we should put the needs of the people using the park as a park above those who want to use it as a rat run, just like Bournemouth Council did with Merrick Park, Kings Park, all those years ago. So Cabinet, for the physical and mental health for real park users, please vote to keep the Whitecliff Gate closed to traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chapman-Law. Can I just ask if there are any other councillors in the room who are not members of Cabinet who wish to speak on this item? No, no one's indicating. So we are now going to open this up for Cabinet to speak. Can I see if anyone would like to say anything on this? Councillor Andy Martin.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. A huge amount has been said already in different meetings and obviously this morning, so I will try and be brief and cut out some of the things I was going to say because those points have been well made. I'd first like to say that as a representative from Christchurch, who takes my responsibilities across the whole of BCP very seriously, I think I can hopefully look at this from a physical and political distance and not be caught up with the very clear emotion and passions on both sides, which I fully accept. But I have a few points and then a quote. Some of these points have been made, but I'd like to say that I support them. This is a park. People can still drive in and out of it. They can still enjoy it and everything it offers. I don't understand how reducing traffic in a public park is not a good thing in the big picture. What is our understanding of what a park should be and is? Let me ask the question: if we had the opportunity to create new parks in 2024, would we create new parks by putting roads through them. I rather doubt it. Something that irritates me, I have to say, is the constant anti-motorist refrain about the council. I'm a driver, I'm not a cyclist. I don't believe this council is anti-motoring. It is, in fact, to reframe it, it's pro-environment and pro-safety. We are, as a council, and in our corporate strategy and in our own personal views in our wards, we are here to create a sustainable urban environment. This is part of that, and it fits entirely with the council's health and well-being agenda. And of course, we've heard this morning, there are different views and different perspectives on what health and well-being is. And also, it fits in with our cleaner, greener, safer agenda. Now, several references have been made to democracy this morning in public statements and what we as councillors should do. So this is a rather arcane quote, but I'm going to use it anyway, from a philosopher who wrote, and an MP who wrote to his constituents, your representative owes you not only his industry but his judgment, and he betrays instead of serving you if he sacrifices it to your opinion. What that means is that this is the essence between the difference between a representative and a delegate. We are elected to use our judgment in making decisions and not to be mandated. I did not get elected to be told what to do. I listen, then I make a judgment, and I think one of my colleagues mentioned that just now. And I doubt that anybody around the table was elected to not to use their judgment. It's called representative democracy, and it's obvious that on any issue, not everyone is going to like the judgments, but that is how the system works. So my view, for what it's worth, is this needs no further delay. I support it, and I'd like to get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin, for some fairly philosophical words there. Can I ask anyone else? Councillor Mike Cox.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. And I wanted to just take a moment to thank all the officers and Councillor Hadley and all those people that have engaged in this. However, I must confess to being somewhat staggered that closing a park gate to traffic has caused so many thousands of petition signatures, placard waving demonstrations, and 47 statements to a cabinet. When the world is falling apart and the country is on its knees, BCP has had to endure the biggest reduction in its budget ever, with cuts to services to the most vulnerable. The council officers have had to spend significant resources dealing with this. And I share Councillor Rigby's view, and I think it was Councillor Butt's view as well, that we've spent an inordinate amount of time on this. Poole Park is exactly what it says it is. It's a park. It's not it's not a cut through. It's not an opportunity to view the scenery from a motor vehicle. It's a park. No one is banning parks from entering the park. There is no restriction to people enjoying the park. On the contrary, I think personally the statement from I think it was a Lucy Allen, sums up my feelings perfectly when she said, and I quote, "Preserving a scenic drive is not in any of BCP's policy documents. Creating a greener, cleaner and more pleasant green space is." And she's absolutely right. Cleaner, greener, safer is front and centre in everything we've said and everything we do. As for the recommendations of the ONS, there was no suggestion from ONS that the recommendations were wrong, or that they needed changing, or that there was any alternatives. I was struck by the last statement made by Ian Beechings, which we didn't get time to look at, when he seems like me to bemoan all the fuss that has been caused, and goes on to effectively say that we should be cowards and bow to those with the loudest voices. Now, listening to residents is vitally important, and this is so much time this is why so much time and effort has been taken over this item. As has already been said on multiple times, this is a consultation, not a referendum. Taking this to council will only suck up more time of officers delay the decisions and risk a key objective of BCP to be a cleaner, greener and safer council. We have a cabinet system. It's an executive decision, not a council decision. Otherwise, every controversial decision would go to council and the business of the council would grind to a halt. Like Councillor Martin, I didn't become a councillor to make the most popular decisions. I became a councillor to make the right decisions for the long-term health and well-being of the people of BCP. And so therefore I am supporting this recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. If I could ask you to turn your microphone on. Thank you. Councillor Richard Burton.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Leader. I've spent quite a lot of time reading the comments. I attended the scrutiny meeting. I sat in the corner over there quietly. I didn't say anything because I wanted to listen. I've read a lot of emails over the past few weeks. I've read a lot of Facebook posts. I spend a bit of time in the park. I don't actually go to Poole Park a huge amount now because of where I live. I'm a Merley resident. I used to use the park more when I lived more near a pool. When my daughter was young, she learned to ride a bike actually on the track in Poole Park. I have fond memories of it. But I have visited 3 times this week. I visited by car twice. I've driven through the park where the bits you can. I've turned round. I've parked the car. I've walked into the park. I haven't visited by bike recently. I have cycled through the, and one thing I would say is, and I know you didn't mean this quite like this when you said it. I don't see myself as a cyclist or a motorist or a walker. I see myself as a person who chooses to use different sorts of transports at times. One thing that I would say is that I also spoke to a lot of people in the park. I was that strange man who accosted strangers in the park to talk to them and to find out what they thought. What their decisions made today, it will disadvantage some people and advantage others. It will do both to some groups of people. That's the definition of politics. That's what it is. Our job is to weigh up the pros and cons. Of the people that I've spoken to, a number of them were actually, on the face of it, quite ambivalent. I would say, a lot of the emails I got, they weren't, and a few people I spoke to were definitely in at one camp or another, but quite a few weren't. But actually, when they thought about it, summed up the arguments quite well. They summed up the pros and cons. And I must admit, I wasn't fair. I targeted certain people. My portfolio is children's services, and therefore I look for people with families and young children. I also look for people who had visible disabilities, and I say visible disabilities, and thinking back, one family I spoke to summed it up quite well. It was a family, it was an elderly lady in a wheelchair who I wasn't able to talk to because she wasn't able to talk to me very well, but she had a carer with her. She had a carer's partner and they had quite a group of children. And they did say, I introduced myself and asked them to use the park, and they told me that actually not being able to use that gate that's closed at the moment did actually cause them some issues. They said it took me a few more minutes to get into the park today, and sometimes we like to drive through. But when they reflected, they said, however, it's a nicer environment now we're in it. They felt that they could get around with the wheelchair better. They felt that the children, they didn't have to have under such tight control. They could allow them a bit more space because there weren't so many cars. And that's what I was getting from lots of people. Now, the bit about constitutions and referendums and voting and things. It's quite clear. A constitution, a consultation, is something which you listen to people's views. It's not a referendum. A referendum has to have specific rules and regulations in place. You have to ensure that you know in advance of it who is going to be allowed to vote. You need to know, define what you're voting on. You have to make sure that people can only vote once. And it has to be done in a certain time frame. With a consultation, you're asking for people's opinions. Now, we do that in planning all the time in a council. When you have a planning meeting, and it could be for a huge building or a single house or a change of something, we ask people to consult on that, and we listen to them, but it's never a number of people voting one and the other. In fact, we tell people, as a council, I advise people, it's pointless getting a petition What you need to do is say things which affect people's decisions. So what I've done is I've looked at that. Now, I also thank people for, I spent a bit of time looking at the history of Poole Park. Donated, we heard, by Lord Wimborne in the late 1800s, opened for Prince of Wales in 1990. 1890. Show my age there. First motor vehicle in the UK were actually in 1894 and 1895. Imported Benz Velo 2 horsepower, 12 miles an hour. That's 4 years after the park was opened. So the person who, Lord Wimborne, who donated the park, wasn't thinking about it for motor traffic. He was at the time, by the way, a Conservative MP, I should just say, although he did change and become a Liberal Democrat in 1904. I just thought, so he did make some bad decisions as well, I should hasten to add. So on balance, you know, and I have listened to all sides, I would say, I think we need to make the decision here today. I don't see any point in taking it to full council. All councils have had opportunity here and that scrutiny to talk. And on my balance, I think that we should keep the gate closed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Can I ask any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Councillor Hannah? Thank you very much. Just to explain to people online, a member of the public has taken issue with a phrase that was used by the Cabinet, by a Cabinet member during the debate. I just want to remind you that this is a meeting that's held in public, so I won't be taking any more interruptions. Councillor Cox, did you want to clarify anything at all?
I don't believe I was quoting you. I was just interpreting what you said. So that's the way I would do it.
Excuse me. No, I'm afraid the time has gone for statements, but thank you. Thank you. So we heard the statements at the beginning, and I'm sure that Cabinet members present do have that statement on file. So if they would like to refer to it, then they have an opportunity to during the summing up. But I'm afraid we're not going to go back and listen to further statements. Oh, and also just to mention, they are published online as well. So if anyone else would like to go and have a look, they are there. Any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Can I say that I don't have a prepared speech? I have been reading the paper in detail. I've been reading the various statements in detail. I've been observing the comments on Facebook, on the Echo. I am someone who's used the park regularly when I lived in Poole. And visited again because of the issue that's been raised. And the first thing I want to say is simply a thank you and appreciation to all of the residents who have expressed views through the consultation. Some of them have been emotive, but I can understand that there are emotions involved, so there's nothing wrong with that. But the nature of the consultation, as has been said, is in order to tease out issues. And whilst we have very professional officers who write reports and who consider pros and cons of different lines of action, the whole purpose of any council consultation is the fact that there will be residents who actually use facilities, who have got their own experience of those facilities and who've got their own views, and consultation enables those views to be expressed. As has been said, it's not a vote. Numbers are of interest, but they're not binding and decisive. And there's also a question as to how views should be weighed If I may, I will risk mentioning something that I've put on Facebook about a slightly different issue, which is a hypothetical question I've set to those who've been commenting, which is, if you have a consultation and 100 residents of a street would like the speed limit reduced to 20 miles an hour, and 500 users of the street would like to be able to drive through at 30 miles an hour, what should the council do? And no one has yet replied to that saying the 500 outweigh the 100. And I think it's a similar situation here where I would tend to give greater weight to the concerns and views. Obviously, there are no residents living in the park, but of those who spend time in the park, as distinct from those who drive through the park. That said, I also note that there are different reasons why people drive through the park. And I share the views of others and I think the word rat run has been used. I share the views of others who feel the park should most certainly not be used as a rat run. That's not what it was intended for. It's difficult to actually work out how many of those who used to drive through were using it as a rat run and how many were using it as a pleasant alternative route. But can I just address the legitimate concerns of those who feel it has been a pleasant alternative route? Because one of the aims of the council is to improve the well-being of residents. And if I may offer a little bit of professional comment on that, I did spend 3 years a little while ago training as a counsellor, not an elected counsellor, but as a psychotherapist style counsellor. And I'm very conscious, and it was part of my training, that part of well-being and part of assisting those with mental health difficulties of whatever kind is experiencing the world outside their home, ideally countryside, park, pleasant location. I hope it won't be taken the wrong way if I add to that nowhere was it suggested in any of my training that the right way to do that is to take a 2-minute drive through. The right way to do that is to spend time appreciating nature and letting nature have its influence on the internal feelings that are causing whatever difficulties the person is experiencing. And the park should be provided for that purpose, for people who want to spend time there, not simply for people who want to drive through. I add to that comment, as Councillor Chapman-Law has said, there is actually a route still in existence for those who want to drive through, entering via the East Gate or the Civic Centre Gate and driving on through to the Seldam Gate. So that is there. It has not been taken away. But my advice for those concerned is spend time with nature. Don't simply take it as a drive-through. All of that said, the recommendation from Overview and Scrutiny has been to put this to full council. I'm not sure what would be added by that process. I think a lot has been aired already in the public arena, in the scrutiny meeting, and in this meeting. And personally, I'm ready to take a decision on the matter. Thank you, Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Now we do have Councillor Brown who is joining us online. That means that he is not able to propose, second or vote in on agenda items. However, he is very welcome to speak. So David, go ahead.
Good morning all. Apologies I can't be with you this morning as I'm away in London. But yeah, I wanted to speak on this item. I listened to the Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny meeting last week, and I've listened to all this morning's statements and questions. And over the months, I've followed the extensive commentary on social media about Poole Park, as well as obviously reading the reports and reading the results of the public consultation. And I just wanted to say that Cabinet's role is to consider the consultation results, yes, but alongside all the other information. So that's information from council officers, from the ward councillors, the results of the traffic surveys which have taken place. And importantly, also consider that alongside BCP's stated council vision, strategy and agreed policies, as well as our own experiences. And I've been a Poole councillor in Poole for 17 years, I'm very familiar with Poole Park. I'm a regular user of Poole Park with friends and family to walk my dog there. I've visited more since the gate closure to sort of see and experience sort of what it's like more. Usually driving to the park myself, but I've also taken part in the Beryl Bike Happy scooter training course in the park as well quite recently. So in all my personal experience of using the park, particularly lately, I see this has been a sort of positive benefit for park users. It feels safer, it seems quieter, a more pleasant environment, and I feel it's safer for many of the dog walkers, particularly around the part of the park nearest to this gate. Just wanted to make clear that a lot of the representations were about closing Poole Park. Poole Park will remain open to the public and will remain open for people to drive there, as has been said, and visit the park. I'd like to thank the ward councillors Emily Harmon and Crispin Goodall for their extensive engagement with the local residents and sharing that with us as cabinet members as well. A lot of the concerns seem to be around losing a scenic drive through the park, but as Councillor Chapman-Law said just recently, that's still possible from the Civic Centre gate. So I used to live on Merrick Park Crescent in Bournemouth for some time and used to drive through that park to access Bournemouth Town Centre, but that was reviewed and changed some years ago. And in my view and experience of that's been to the positive benefit of those visiting and using Merrick Park, with little impact on the drivers that used to drive through there. And I see this as being very similar. So on balance, having listened to all of the views and considered all of the information that we've been provided and looked at my own personal experience, I just find myself in complete support of the recommendation before Cabinet this morning. And if I was with you in the room, I would be voting in favour of that, that the current trial closure of the Whitecliffe entrance and exit point would be made permanent in Poole Park.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown, for joining us remotely and giving your thoughts. I'm going to go back to Councillor Mike Cox very briefly.
Thanks. I feel honour bound to bypass the system and read Councillor Beeching's statement, if that's okay with you, because I certainly didn't want to misinterpret what you'd said, so I will read it out in full. My computer's just decided to die on me. Just a minute. The statement starts, unwittingly, BCP has the unenviable task of trying to find a lasting solution to the fury over the closure of Whitecliffe Gate. It may not chime with the objectives of certain minority groups, but unless Council wants adverse publicity in both public and social media to continue, I respectfully suggest all parties put aside any prejudice, accept the majority of people want the gate to remain open. At 7:30 a.m. tomorrow, remove from view all signs mentioning the closure of the gate. At 10 a.m, quietly open the Whitecliffe gates to traffic so vehicles can drive through all three entrances and both exits exactly as they could do before 17th of January. Importantly, make sure there is no publicity whatsoever about the reopening. When the public find that they can again drive through all entrances, the adverse publicity will quickly disappear altogether. Just as important, BCP needs to learn from this debacle and leave Poole Park alone. I certainly agree with the element we need to learn from the debacle, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. Okay, any final input from Cabinet members on that? So I think we're going to, well, I did just want to speak myself as well, just to thank everyone for the contributions. The the last few weeks have been really challenging, and I go backwards and forwards on this issue myself, visiting the park a lot to see if the issues are arising, also speaking to people who are out and about, reading the report, considering consultations, attending overview and scrutiny committee debates, and taking into account all of the information that we have before us to come to a decision. However, a decision we must make. So I'm just going to pass over to Councillor Hadley to sum up, and then we're going to go to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think Councillor Harman, the first councillor who spoke, summed it up very well. And in terms of, this is difficult. Feelings have run very high, and we've heard an awful lot of people, awful lot of views from a lot of people. We as councillors don't get to make easy decisions. We have to try and weigh the things in the balance and to contrast the views. And I didn't quite catch the philosopher's name that Councillor Martin referred to, but then it's always been an issue that you don't get popular because you're going to upset half the people in whatever choice you take. It's clear that there are issues with the consultation methods that the council use. It's something that Cabinet had identified, and we had an overview from the head, the director responsible for consultation and overview and scrutiny have said, and that was actually a bigger part of the debate in overview and scrutiny, that it's something that they would like to come back. In fact, I think they referred it to the Overview and Scrutiny Board because it relates to all of the business of the council. And I think that was also reflected in the views on the consultation on this issue, that we had very strongly support for the measure and very strong opposition to the measure and very few in the middle. And that's not the way most people actually are, quite often either apathetic or have a much more nuanced view than being at those either ends. So we heard from the extremes and not from the centre on the issue. The issue about are we being anti-ageist, are we being anti-disabled? There are an awful lot of older people and disabled people who gave views on both sides of the debate, and I think and again as Councillor Hannah highlighted, it's about being able to spend time in a pleasant place and enjoy that time. And I read several of the responses which said, actually, I started thinking this was a bad idea and I've experienced it, and that's the whole purpose of doing a trial, is to be able to achieve that. There was reference made by Councillor Canavan to not having looked at other methods or other closures as outlined in the report, all the different methods. We have closed the park in the middle. We did it in 2016 as a trial. We've also got timed closures of the quay and the high streets in the centre of Poole, which are obviously closed during the day. So we do know from some of those other elements the impacts and likelihoods of that, and the team in the park have highlighted what is feasible and for them, and also their experience in talking to the many users of the park, because obviously they're there all the time. I think in summary, Chair, I really genuinely like to thank everybody for having given their views. It is important, and it is part of democracy for us to hear those views. But we don't have to go with the majority view on these things. We have to try and make the right decision for the future. And the park was entrusted to the council to look after on behalf of all of the people living in the area. I recognise it's a gem for people much wider than those living immediately and immediately close by. And I hope it long continues to be so. But I think we do have to try and make it the best we can for the future. And that means I would still favour making this permanent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. So the recommendation in the Cabinet paper is proposed and seconded, and despite us having considered Environment and Places recommendation, we haven't had any amendments from Cabinet. So can I take a vote now? All those in favour of the recommendations as stated, please show. Thank you. That is unanimous. So thank you to all of those who have attended today. We'll break for I think 5 minutes just to allow those who are here specifically for item 10 to leave if they wish. Thank you. Welcome back to today's meeting of Cabinet. We have just finished agenda item number 5 and are starting at agenda item 6. So this is the shared vision for Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, which is the 2024 to 28 strategy and delivery plan. I'm going to be proposing this paper in Councillor Slade's absence. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. So this paper is a follow-up paper to the new corporate strategy, which was agreed in January this year. It focuses on our place and environment and our people and communities, which is the change of direction that we have following the change in administration this time last year. Once that was decided upon, we set to work considering all the feedback from the public, the strategies that BCP already has in place, as well as what our ambitions and aims are for our area and for the people that live here, to create this paper that really gives the detail behind the new key priorities and how they will be delivered and monitored, so that residents know what to expect from BCP Council over the next few years, and also as a document from which residents can hold us to account both on the pace and the quality of what is being delivered. I've certainly really enjoyed working on this. It is very much across Cabinet and speaks to all of our different areas of responsibility. It is, I think I particularly like the way that it's written and presented. It's really easy to understand. It gives a real clarity around what BCP Council is now all about. And as we go forward, we'll be able to see how we're actually measuring up to these commitments and whether we're staying on track to deliver the kind of conurbation that we really want to live and work in. So, having introduced the paper, I'd now like to invite Councillor Bartlett to share with us any input from Overview and Scrutiny Board, where this paper was considered last week. Councillor Bartlett, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add to that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. Now, just to open it up to any other councillors in the room, is anyone wishing to speak on this item? Anyone online wishing to speak? Okay, so let's hand this over to Cabinet. Any Cabinet colleagues? Councillor Mike Cox.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I just wanted to comment that too often public and private organisations have detailed strategy plans which see this sit on shelves with little or no delivery. And sometimes this can be deliberate, and sometimes, and more often actually, it not is because they've been blown off course by events or by immediate priorities that blow it off course. The saga that we've just witnessed is certainly a classic case where we can be blown off course if we spend too much time and effort dealing with, you know, I think everybody concerned, relatively small in matters. Politicians of any colour, whatever colour, really should be judged on what they promise and what they deliver, particularly. And this is a really good document, which we need to make sure it happens.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Any other speakers from Cabinet? Councillor Andy Martin.
I just wanted to thank all the teams behind this. This is presentationally, it's a fantastic document. I'm not just saying that because there's a picture of Christchurch on the front, obviously, but it's great. It's a fantastic design, well presented, clear. The narrative is superb. There's some targets and ambitions that to set ourselves against, and I just think that the officers have done a great job on this. And just to echo what Mike, Councillor Cox has said, lots of people took part in the consultation. So we need to know. Well, they need to know. They need to see the outcome of their input into what we have into our strategy. So I hope that we'll be able to share that as far and wide as possible with as many residents as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Yeah, just to echo kind of what's already been said, I think a lot of work has gone into this. I had a lot of queries with it at draft stage, so thank you for accommodating some of them. I think it's a really excellent piece of work that is very accessible to the public. Some of these documents sometimes aren't, but I think it's important as well that to say that a delivery plan sits behind all of this, and that's the most important thing. It's okay having nice words and a glossy document, but we have to deliver on what's in it, and I'm just looking forward to that. I think we should be really held to account by it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Can I endorse, as Councillor Martin has already said, the presentation of the document, which I think is first class. I think we can be really proud of the way that we're putting across our ambitions for the future. And I know that it is a future-looking document, but what I really wanted to comment on was the page that sets out our recent successes. And I've got to say that it does sadden me that I see so many comments in the public arena that are critical of the council in one way or another, when officers are working hard to deliver for residents and achieving so much. And I think we should just spend a moment looking at that page and reflecting on all of our recent successes. Two of those I'll pick out because it wouldn't be appropriate to comment on each of them. The first one is the big one. The big one is that we achieved a balanced budget for the next 4 years. And that is pretty major set against the financial difficulties that this administration inherited. I put it both in terms of the way in which reserves were being eaten away by the previous administration at a level that could not be sustained. And that in itself put a major budget pressure on us, the need to save the 50 million a year that we did achieve in setting the balanced budget. The other one is the big one that I think people outside of this room too rarely remember, which is the fact that this council's government grant has been cut over successive years by a total of £100 million per year. And we could do so much more if we had that money. The fact that we've managed to achieve a balanced budget and are doing all that we are doing and aiming for all that we aim for, I think is a major tribute. And I think we can be rightly proud of that and proud of our officers for what they're doing and what they're aiming to do. And the other one is, in one sense, the minor one, but it's the one that appears most frequently in terms of public comment. Potholes, signs, drains and road markings. We have attended, officers have attended 8,746 locations to fix those. Can I say thank you to those officers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Andy Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, I just endorse the comments of everyone. I was struck by page 32, not just because it's got a picture of Poole Quay just to compete with Highcliffe, but because it ties into the national frameworks, the UN sustainability goals and their purpose goals, and our efforts to try and make sure that we have a much more sustainable place. So from a climate change perspective, but also in terms of the many things that we have to weigh in the balance, and that our officers have to weigh in the balance in trying to make sure that we are creating a good place for the future, a fair place for the future, and dealing with our impact on the planet as a part of that. So it's important. That's something that we set out back in 2019. Actually, we tried to tie our plans into the sustainability goals, and I'm really pleased to see that's still there. And in terms of the potholes, I'd just like to support what Councillor Hannah just said. I spotted an emergency, or what I consider to be an emergency pothole, and the guys were there within 3 hours fixing it. So you know, the team really do respond, not just on volume, but also on urgency when it's there. And I think that's worth celebrating and thanking them for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. So I'm just going to very briefly sum up and say that I attended the meeting of Overview and Scrutiny Committee on this, and we listened to what some of the councillors raised. There were some minor changes, for example, including some more numbers around social homes and affordable homes, improving the reference to staff satisfaction, and changing one of the photos. So they have been incorporated throughout. So the final document is actually in the Appendix 1, which shows those amended changes. I just wanted to clarify that for everyone. So can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That is unanimous. So we are now going to move on to agenda item number 7, which is the BCP Alcohol Public Spaces Protection Order Review. Councillor Wilson is going to be presenting and proposing this. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. This Public Space Protection Order, also known as a PSPO, has been in place since July 2001 and expires on the 30th of June 2024. The proposal is to extend the order in its current form with the same conditions and areas of coverage. All wards are included with the exception of Broadstone, Merley, Highcliffe and Walkford Commons. Where wards are not included, it is because there continues to be no evidence of alcohol-related antisocial behaviour in public spaces. I should hasten to add that this is not an alcohol ban and focuses on any negative behaviours displayed in public when consuming alcohol, which is having a detrimental impact on others in the locality. It allows authorised officers to confiscate alcohol from people acting antisocially or those likely to act in an antisocial manner, and allows them to disperse people from the area. A breach of PSPO is punishable by a fixed penalty notice or prosecution, but does not negate that the police can also deal with these negative behaviours through their own powers, and they have been doing some very proactive work in this area in recent months in partnership with us. Following a judicial review on another PSPO, the Council have had it determined that authorised officers can disperse from an area and as such will be taking a more robust approach to the PSPO enforcement in areas where CSAS officers operate. We have seen an increase in alcohol confiscation and PSPO enforcement in recent months through the Department of Transport ASB pilot on public transport network. That has resulted in 1 injunction with 15 seizures on the bus network since February. This enhanced resource into CSAS means there is greater coverage in the wider areas of the conurbation, whilst the town team resource in Bournemouth Town Centre will lend a robust approach to street drinking in places like the Square. Cabinet are asked to extend the PSPO in its current state for a further 3 years to allow continued enforcement of alcohol-related antisocial behaviour in our public places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. So this hasn't been to scrutiny, so I don't need to specifically ask scrutiny chairs if there are any recommendations or the like, but I will ask if there are any councillors in the room or online that if they wish to speak, please indicate now. No? Okay, so over to Cabinet. Councillor Mike Cox.
I just wanted to add to what Councillor Wilson has just said, and really thank the officers involved and who've done, I think, a really excellent job putting this report together and also collecting the evidence. I think it's right that we look carefully at any orders which may restrict the public's rights and freedoms. As a nation, we have a very difficult relationship with alcohol, although I do feel that this is gradually changing. Nevertheless, it's important we do listen to the consultations with the public, and maintaining these orders in selected places, I think, is the right thing to do at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mike Cox. And also just to add, I think that a lot of councillors will have experienced problems with maybe public drinking that they would rather not have in their wards. And I'm really proud of this council that we do actually take some action there in tackling antisocial behaviour that comes from it. I know that this has certainly impacted my ward. Councillor Wilson, would you like to sum up at all?
I'm happy to just kind of say thank you for the support. I think the lack of contributions kind of indicate how just important and popular this is, and it's also very popular with the public, who think that this is an issue and something that we need to be addressing. So yeah, hopefully we will see a more robust approach in the future.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? That's unanimous. Thank you. Wow, we're cantering through them now. So we're actually going to be amending the agenda again, I'm afraid, and that is simply because Councillor Wilson needs to go to a very important meeting and he still has a paper to present. So we're actually going to be swapping around item 9 and 10. So we'll be bringing item 8 and 9. So we're going to be bringing item 9 forward to do first, and then we will go to agenda item 8. So item 9 is the Council New Build Housing and Acquisition Strategy, the reallocation of funds and individual site approvals. Councillor Wilson, over to you to propose.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for accommodating my request. It's much appreciated. The council has been awarded £7.5 million in grant funding, allocated from the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, also known as DLUC, to obtain accommodation for families with housing needs who have arrived in the UK via Ukrainian and Afghan resettlement and reallocation schemes. This report recommends that we accept the 3 rounds of funding from the Local Authority Housing Fund. The report also sets out to enable the increase of temporary accommodation within the CNAS programme. Additional capital is required, and it is proposed to move the budget within the CNAS programme from the provision of private rented homes, which doesn't meet the needs of our community currently, to temporary accommodation. This will reduce our reliance on bed and breakfast requirement within BCP, and in turn will reduce our growing financial revenue pressure, which is putting some councils across the country in serious financial strife. There's also 3 housing development schemes included within the report, which are part of our temporary accommodation programme. The first of those schemes is an 8 property 3-bedroom homes at Surrey Road for refugee families living in temporary accommodation, which will be rented at an affordable rent, which is capped at around 62% of market rent. The second scheme is at Crescent Road. It's 5 1-bedroom and 3 2-bedroom apartments at affordable rent, capped at local housing allowance for families leaving bed and breakfast accommodation. And the final scheme is at Darracott Road for 6 1-bedroom flats as part of our single homelessness accommodation programme. So I would like to present the recommendations as set out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. And can I just check, is there a seconder for that paper? Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Thank you for seconding that item. So do we have any councillors in the room or online who are not on Cabinet who wish to speak? I can see Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Bartlett, would you like to speak on this, please?
Yes, thank you very much. This paper is quite a complex paper. It encompasses a number of fairly different aspects of housing provision. But I would like to just raise or pose a couple of questions, if I may, and also to raise 1 or 2 issues about the costings within the paper. The first question is the transfer of the budget of 36.3 million to a different budget, which will change basically the provision for private rental scheme. And my question is, which schemes will be directly affected by that transfer of budget? I'm assuming it will be Princess Road, which is one of our major developments, and for which was aimed at being partially PRS. Perhaps Councillor Wilson could confirm or otherwise that point. The other point I wanted to raise is on the cost of the build of those 3 developments that are listed in the paper. yes, astronomical build costs. And I'll quote Surrey Road, for example, 8 3-bedroom houses at 440k build costs on average for each one. And also a very strange figure of 25k for the land cost. Well, if you can buy a plot of land to build 8 3-bedroom houses on for 25k, I think you're doing extremely well. So I'm not quite sure where that 25k has come from. Anyway, I won't go into the other details, but the build costs for the Crescent Road and Darracott Road are also very, very high. And I'm just wondering, is that a product of building these in-house, or the intention to use our in-house team? And I suspect that these costs will probably be challenged when this paper goes to full council. I said there are a whole raft of issues that come out of this paper. Not least is why we're not focusing much more on building social housing rather than affordable housing. It's a much bigger question here, but if you have enough social housing, you don't actually need to have affordable housing or indeed the PRS housing. The council, if they've focused on social housing and allow the private sector to get on with the rest, and let's face it, in the main, that's what they do. But that's probably a debate for another day. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. Councillor Wilson, if you could answer, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. I'm just going to go back to Councillor Wilson briefly before we open it up.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Well, we have Nigel Bauer and John Thornton, who are in our development team. So I'll let them come up and kind of explain, add to anything I say. But in terms of the transfer of the budget, I think currently we're not building private rented sector homes, so it makes sense to move it across to this approach, because we're needing to get people out of bed and breakfast and into more settled, more useful forms of temporary accommodation that are going to help their well-being. In terms of Princess Road, I think that scheme anyway is a bit of a standstill because of just the viability of it. We're really struggling since it was first approved. When I was the portfolio holder back in 2019, the costs have just skyrocketed, and we're really struggling with that. In terms of the build cost, this is something that always comes up. I think partly it's to do with quality, partly it's to do with the market, partly it's to do with the local authority regulations that we have to abide by. I can completely understand Councillor Bartlett's queries with this because they are high, but they are low risk in terms of the fact that they are modelled to all provide us with a surplus. So yeah, I'm content, but I will pass over to the development team to just expand on anything I said or correct anything I said, which could be needed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Welcome, Mr. Thornton, Mr. Bauer. Please do, if you have anything to add to that, go ahead.
I think the only thing I need to add rather than correct is about the land value. That is based on an affordable product land value, not a market value providing market homes. So it is like a discounted land value, which is an accepted modelling method and valuation method. Thank you.
I'd just like to add further clarification on the Princess Road. That's a name scheme that is outside the PRS budget that we're talking about and discussing here today. So that's in addition. So it won't affect the delivery of Princess Road if and when we get over the issues currently at hand.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, and can we just clarify Councillor Bartlett's further point? Is there any other private rented schemes that are affected by this? I assume not, because we're moving away from them, but I'll let you come in.
There's none. We've got the name scheme, which are in the development side, which won't be affected, but the PRS budget fundamentally got paused during the course of last summer. There are no current schemes that will be affected by this.
Thank you very much for offering that explanation. Can I just check, are there any other councillors who would like to speak who aren't on cabinets? Nope, so let's open this up to cabinet, please. Councillor Andy Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think perhaps part of this transfer is a reflection of the crisis in housing at the moment. The fact that the private rented sector is failing tenants quite often because the landlords either can't afford or see their money better in other places, and we as a council are having to pick that up. So I can understand why we're having to put more effort into the temporary accommodation and into dealing with people in some crisis. So I think I welcome the efforts of the team to try and do what we can to struggle to fill the hole. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak? I was just going to add myself that some of us attended the BCP Homelessness Partnership yesterday, and we discussed on my table in my group, we talked a lot about temporary accommodation and the sheer weight and pressure that is on the council in trying to find suitable accommodation. At the moment, we have a lot of families who are in very unsuitable places, and actually that the priority that maybe we take as a council moving forward on our homelessness strategy is to primarily try and tackle that temporary accommodation issue, because that is seriously affecting the well-being of many of our families in our communities. So, Councillor Wilson, anything to add?
No, I think it's a fair challenge from Councillor Bartlett around some of the issues that we're facing, and in the coming months we are going to be engaging with members on the issue of housing as we look to the forward plan in Cabinet in September around reviewing where the housing strategy currently is. I think he raises a really important point about the importance of social housing, and I think that's something that not only we should be doing as council, but we should also be lobbying government to put more money into social housing and enabling us to build it. I always think it's important to emphasise, though, our affordable rent is capped at local housing allowance, and as I mentioned in my opening, the first scheme is around 62% of market rent, which is, not as low as social housing, but it is very helpful for some of our residents. So I think that's the only things that I want to kind of add in addition, and just thank Cabinet for their support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. So can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That is unanimous. And thank you, Councillor Wilson, for doing that a little bit earlier. So we're going to revert back to agenda item 8, which is the Sandbanks Peninsula Neighbourhood Plan. Apologies to those who are expecting it to come a little bit later. So Councillor Martin is going to be presenting and proposing this paper because Councillor Slade isn't with us today. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mike Cox, for seconding that. Councillor Martin.
Can I just first draw to Cabinet's attention a communication from the Sandbanks Neighbourhood Forum advising us that they had withdrawn a letter to the Secretary of State regarding the timetable for the plan, and I'd just ask Cabinet to note that, please. And I'd also like to share the forum's acknowledgement of, and I quote, the help and support of BCP planning team in getting the plan to this final stage in the adoption process, which is greatly appreciated. They also say the community is excited at the prospect of having a set of policies which will benefit Sandbanks, its residents and visitors for generations to come. I thought I would just set the scene with that. I'm very pleased to bring this paper forward and to see another neighbourhood plan, hopefully, on the verge of coming to fruition after much hard work by the Sandbanks Neighbourhood Forum community and our officers. The plan has been 5 years in the making, and just a little bit of context for not everybody who may be necessarily familiar with neighbourhood plans. There's sometimes confusion between neighbourhood plan and the local plan. So neighbourhood plans allow communities to have more influence and control over their local area to ensure they get the right type of development for their neighbourhood, and much more in terms of bolstering environmental protection and other issues. A neighbourhood plan forms part of the development plan and sits alongside the local plan, and Our local plan is in progress, as we know, prepared by the local planning authority. Decisions on planning applications will be made using both the local plan and the neighbourhood plan and any other material considerations. Just to recap on where we are in this process, the plan has been looked at by the appointed examiner, and he's made a number of modifications. So you can find those in paragraph 15 of the report. And our officers say that the draft plan incorporating the examiner's modifications would meet or do meet the basic conditions for the plan. So these modifications include matters relating to landscape, character, trees, gardens, biodiversity, public realm and other matters. So Cabinet is asked to accept these modifications laid out in the report and recommendations 1 to 4, which will enable the neighbourhood plan to proceed to a referendum on July the 18th. In such a referendum, it is a simple majority. In recommendation 5, you'll note, so if we do not agree the modifications from the inspector, then that will require a further process. And you can find the reference that on paragraph 34. On a personal note, having been through the process of that's me getting confused, of a neighbourhood plan with Highcliffe and Warkford Parish Council between 2019 and last January, when this council voted to make it a made plan. I think this is a great move for Sandbanks, as they have indicated, and I hope it's the first of many more which will empower our communities in the planning process. So I urge Cabinet to support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. If I could open it up to any members, any councillors who are not members of Cabinet, just having a quick look around the room. Nope. So over to Cabinet. Anyone like to speak on this? Councillor Mike Cox.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, I was very happy to second this. The development of these neighbourhood plans is clearly a vitally important part of our planning system, and there to protect the local characteristics and priorities of a particular area. And I really wanted to commend the work of all parties, particularly those in the local community who will have spent endless amounts of time researching and consulting to get this plan to where it is at the moment. It's a thankless task. But one which the local community should be very grateful for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Hadley.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously in Poole Town we have Poole Keys Forum, similarly with the neighbourhood plan, and it's really important. And I know the effort that the volunteers involved in developing our neighbourhood plan put into that. And as you say, some of that is maybe not realised by many members of the local population, but it's really important. I think the other element of this, though, is in the future we are hoping to move to a governance review and to the potential for parishing the areas of BCP that are not currently parished, which has perhaps more powers than a neighbourhood plan has, with more comprehensive coverage. Because I think it's great for this community, as it is for as we've said, in areas like Broadstone, Highcliffe, and Poole Keys amongst some, but that doesn't cover the whole area. So I think this is a great step for this locality, and I look forward to further work on how we can think about governance for the whole area. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Councillor Hadley. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak? Nope. I think just to echo as well that we shouldn't underestimate the sheer amount of effort that goes into setting up a neighbourhood forum and bringing forward a neighbourhood plan. I think it's brilliant that residents get that opportunity to be a bit more involved in the decision making of planning applications in their ward or their area, and I'd really recommend, if any other residents who are interested in neighbourhood planning, what a neighbourhood plan is and what a neighbourhood forum does, then maybe a good place to start is to speak to your ward councillor. So can I see if Councillor Martin, anything you want to say to sum up?
Nothing to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you ever so much. So can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? Brilliant, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we're now going to go back to the original order of agenda items. So we move on to agenda item 11, which is simpler recycling waste reforms. This is going to be presented and proposed by Councillor Hadley. Is there a seconder for this?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Leader. Deputy Leader, sorry, I promoted you. So it follows changes to legislation at national level in terms of responsibilities of councils to try and improve recycling rates and to look at a level of equality, I guess, in terms of the handling of waste across the whole country. It does hopefully for us resolve an issue for people in Poole who've kind of felt they're subsidising the other parts of the conurbation by not having food waste available to them, where we have been collecting food waste in Bournemouth and Christchurch area. And it's also looking to a number of other obligations placed upon us, including that people in flats will need to have food waste recycling available for them too. So some of these things are not choices we've made; they're things that government are telling us we must do, and so we are trying to make the best we can of it and make it as workable for residents and also for the teams that collect the waste as we go forwards. It also enables us or demands that we collect commercial food waste, and obviously that has obligations for businesses, which will be for some a challenge, but we're working through that as best we can with the plans for the businesses. And in some places where residents really struggle to find space, then the opportunities for a fortnightly bagged recycling service. But that is not something we can cope with in bulk, so it needs to be by exception and for those that really need it. So I recommend this to Council, to Cabinet.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Now, Councillor Burton has just raised an interest that we potentially have, him and I. So, Councillor Burton, would you like to explain that?
Yeah, just purely for clarity, and it is on my members' interest. I'm a trustee of the charity Win on Waste, which does collect raise funds for charities by doing recycling and is involved in education about recycling. We don't do anything with food waste or film. In fact, nothing that's in this paper it overlaps what we do at all. But I just thought for clarity I ought to mention it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. And I should add as well that I'm a recycling ambassador for Win on Waste. But as you mentioned, food waste, I also run an organisation called the Branksome and Rossmore Community Fridges, which deals exclusively with waste which would otherwise end up in landfill. Again, that is not a pecuniary interest. I'm purely there as a volunteer. So can I see if there are any councillors in the room or online that wish to speak on this? No, no one is indicating. So over to Cabinet. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yes, I was very happy to second this particular paper that particularly as I wrote my degree thesis entitled Economics of Recycling back in 1981. So I'm not sure I should declare an interest. But I was also responsible for introducing glass recycling in Hillingdon when I was a councillor there, which was always very important to me. But it has been a particular bugbear of mine that since being elected, the Poole has not had food recycling. I thought this was grossly unfair, and irrespective of the merits of recycling, it is vital that all residents at BCP are treated equally, and that they should get the same service throughout the conurbation. So I think this paper is very welcome. It will, as has been kind of implied, probably create extra financial pressures, which we will have to deal with as part of the budget process. But I'm delighted that this inequality has been addressed, and I look forward to further initiatives to enhance recycling across BCP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak on this? Councillor Burton.
Yeah, I'd only like to add with the food waste recycling. My ward is one of those wards which have probably 80% don't have food waste recycling, where 20% do. And we have this strange situation when the recycling lorry drives past some houses that don't have food waste to collect the food waste from others that do. And therefore, I am very keen on seeing that inequality stopped, and so that we all have the same service across both my ward and the council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak? Nope. Councillor Hadley, anything to add?
Thank you. Yes, if I may. The interest that both you and Councillor Burton declared is great. That stuff is getting diverted from the waste stream. You know, we need to reduce the amount of waste that we have, and things like the new for year facility that we have, but also the work of volunteers and in finding other uses and reuse for waste or reducing it. It's a good thing. It may reduce our tonnage recycled, but actually that's for me that's definitely a good thing. I think Councillor Crofts mentioned the extra financial pressures. We will get new burdens funding as part of this, and we have appealed because the amount of money that we were offered was significantly less than we thought it would cost to undertake this work. We've got to buy new refuse vehicles and crew them and in order to do the food waste in Poole, and that's a significant cost on us. But we will get some funding, or we're waiting to hear whether we've been successful in appealing a slightly larger figure. In terms of Councillor Burton's comment about food waste and the lorries driving past houses, that reminded me that one of the elements that we are looking at is rebalancing the rounds. So looking to actually try and ensure that we are not working in a Poole and Bournemouth and Christchurch separate area because of history, but we're actually working as efficiently as we can across the whole area. So hopefully those lorries will be stopping outside every house and optimising their routes. And the other element that the team and Georgina is online, has put an awful lot of work into this, is looking at the carbon footprint of what we do and how, you know, the optimisation is partly also about trying to reduce the road miles of our vehicles. And as we look forward in terms of where the waste streams go and reprocuring the people who receive our waste, we are also looking very much at the carbon footprint of that and how we can maximise the time that the teams are physically collecting waste and not driving to a remote location with it and using diesel or electricity. We have some vehicles that are electric powered too. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. So can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That is also unanimous. So we're going to move on to agenda item 12, which is the Tricuro Local Authority Trading Company Business Plan. Councillor Brown is now no longer online, having had to come offline. So Councillor Hannah is going to be proposing this paper. Is there a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Happy to propose the paper, which is setting out the Tricuro strategic business plan and the direction over the next 5 years. As you said, it would normally have been Councillor Brown who would have introduced and provided commentary prior to it coming for discussion. He was unable to remain with us because of other commitments. I think it's wholly inappropriate for me to attempt to substitute for him, and I'm extremely grateful to Mr. Hornsby, who is the report author, who's come to the table and is ready to provide some introductory comments and indeed to answer questions if there are questions. May I pass to him?
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Welcome to the table, Mr. Hornsby. Is there anything you would like to do in presenting this paper?
Thanks, Chair. I'll be very brief. So, just really to point out, this is the first time a strategic business plan from Tricuro has come to Cabinet, and because really it's the first time we've been able to do this in a solely BCP focused way. Previously, we had an arrangement where we're in partnership with Dorset Council and jointly shared the ownership of Tricuro, which is our local authority trading company for adult social care services. So just briefly, the report is setting out a 5-year plan, and it's trying to set out the journey that Tricuro believe they want to go on, and that's been working in conjunction with myself and Councillor Brown around the direction of travel for the company. aligned to the corporate strategy objectives and priorities, and also the adult social care strategic plan. It's quite a focus on innovation, community engagement, workforce development and growth, but really also striving to be as efficient and well-run organisation that supports our most vulnerable adults in the community, and at the best price and the best cost that it can, whilst also maintaining quality. So the business plan itself sets out some short, medium and longer term objectives, and that should consolidate the position of the company as a leading provider of good quality services in the area. That's all I was going to say.
Thank you very much. I just want to look around the room and see if there are any councillors not on Cabinet wishing to speak. Thank you very much, Patrick Canavan. Would you like to come up at this point?
Thank you, Chair. It's nice to be sat next to Mr. Hornsby because he's heard me say this before, so nothing of what I'm about to say will be new to him. As Mr. Hornsby said, this is the first time the business plan's come to Cabinet, and it has not yet been to the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee, but I can assure you and any members of the public listening that it's on our work programme to do that. I think we'll want to look quite closely at the impact of the budgetary decisions on Tricuro and the way in which they're reshaping their service to accommodate all of that. I have, as Mr. Hornsby knows, had recently a closure of a residential care home in my ward, which is run by Tricuro, and it's part of the budgetary constraints which the organisation is facing. So we're wanting to have a particular look at that. But I just wanted to say that within the business plan that's before you today, there are a couple of mentions of things like the day opportunities and the creation of community hubs. And again, you know, I have raised this issue before, that there is a real need to try and coordinate this work and to try and ensure that we make the best use of these premises, and that work is in their business plan. And I'm frantically trying to ensure that all of the relevant bits of BCP actually act in a coordinated way on this project. So we will be wanting to have a look at that. So the only other issue I did want to highlight, Chair, if I may, is just the whole issue of the services like Tricuro operate on reablement. They are going to have another look at reablement. I think that's a really important piece of work because we do need to do something more on that, and ensuring that we work with our health colleagues to facilitate those people who need that additional support on, possibly on exit from hospital or other circumstances, that we need to get that right. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that work is ongoing, and to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan. I can see online that we have Councillor Bartlett indicating. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yeah, on the agenda today, it actually says the report details the new shareholder governance arrangements. Well, I looked through the report and I couldn't actually see it unless I've missed it. But I am a member of the Tricuro Executive Shareholder Group, which previously provided governance arrangements from the council to Tricuro. Now, as far as I'm aware, that Executive Shareholder Group still exists. In fact, I looked at the web page today and I'm still annotated as being a member of it. There's nothing in this paper that talks about the new arrangements for governance. Maybe it's not been discussed yet and it's something to be detailed, but I would be interested to find out what the governance arrangements are. You know, how will the public's interests be reflected in the way that this company is going to be run. I did read through the business plan. I don't have any problems with it, I have to say, but I'm interested in that aspect of it, the democratic control of between the council and the services provided by Tricura? What are the governance arrangements going to be? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. I'm going to go back to Councillor Hannah to answer that, but in the meantime, just ask if anyone else would like to speak on this who isn't on Cabinet. No, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I fully understand Councillor Bartlett's concerns regarding governance. That is something which is being reviewed as part of a more general governance review for these bodies. That was decided at January Cabinet, and I believe a substantial amount of work has already taken place, and it will be coming to us in the July Cabinet meeting. So there'll be an opportunity for Councillor Bartlett to look at that carefully and no doubt bring it to scrutiny as well. So we look forward to that. Just while I'm speaking, could I express thanks to Councillor Canavan for his comments and for his support, and wearing a slightly different hat, confirm our concern for the community hubs and for making sure that all council facilities are well used for the community as part of transformation. That is something that I am working on with officers and with colleague cabinet members. So yes, grateful to Councillor Canavan for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. So I'm just going to open this up to Cabinet members. Would anyone on Cabinet like to speak? Councillor Mike Cock.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I would just really want to comment that the current basis on which Tricura is managed is the position we're in, because of the departure of Dorset, really presents a unique opportunity, I think, to reset or redefine its role and its objectives to work solely for the residents of BCP. And I think this is a big opportunity that we need to take, and I completely take on board the points made about governance. I think that's very important, but I think there's a big opportunity here, and I think this is the first step along that opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak? Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a little concerned actually that the chair of Health and Social Care over in Scrutiny said that they haven't had a chance to scrutinise this, because it is important that, you know, if we're setting the direction for the next 5 years in this document, that you know, the people who are looking at this in detail and understand it and you know, will obviously hold us and officers to account, get that opportunity. So I just wonder how dynamic this document is. Is it a fixed document for the next 5 years? Is it a rolling 5 years? At what point might anything that that committee particularly might want to look at, would we be able to incorporate or change it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. I'm just looking between Councillor Hannah and Mr. Hornsby. Would Mr. Hornsby go ahead?
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good point, Councillor Hadley, and it's not a rolling 5-year business plan. There will be further business plans that come back, but it will be reviewed regularly. So the objectives are quite broad if you look at them, and then how we'll measure those will become clear as we go through. And you'll note in the report as well that it talks about additional EIAs should there be a requirement for if they were changing things. I think the point about scrutiny, and Councillor Canavan's point, is we've agreed that scrutiny will oversee the delivery of the objectives and hold both Tricura and officers to account should those deliverables not happen, or if they need a change, to be able to comment and take a view on those. But because we've set them in the context of the wider council strategic objectives, it does align with those responsibilities, but take the point about it not coming to review and scrutiny beforehand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hornsby. Any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak? If not, I'll go back briefly to Councillor Hannah. Anything to add?
I was just going to say, as Mr. Hornsby has already said, in the context of scrutiny, I have absolute confidence that the business plan will continue to be scrutinised extremely well, and I'm sure that Councillor Canavan will make certain of that. Thank you. I move.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hannah. So can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? That's passed unanimously. Thank you. So we are going to move on to agenda item 13, which is the SEND progress update, re the SEND improvement plan and safety valve. We have Councillor Burton presenting and proposing this paper. Is there a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. The purpose of this paper is to allow Cabinet, and it was by Cabinet's request, to have an overview of the progress made to date within the SEND system at BCP and the efforts across the SEND partnerships to continue these improvements on the journey to a better service, or dare I say, a good service. It also provides a narrative of the recent safety valve application and the worries regarding the current SEND funding deficit implications to the Council. The only discussions here are that we're happy to note and acknowledge the report and its descriptions. I do believe that Children's Overview and Scrutiny are also going to have a chance to have a look at this in the future. So it also gives people a chance to have another look at the report if they so wish at a later date. I'm going to start with a slight unofficial correction. With the sentence, the SEND improvement journey has been an absolute focus for BCP's Children's Service since the DFE and NHSE review visit in July 23. I would say the absolute focus started before then. The realisation that a lot of improvement meetings had been happening with good intentions, but improvements were too slow coming, was actually very much in the mind, and it was with my earliest discussions with Children's Services officers. Officers and I knew that the outcome of the DFE review would be, and we're already looking for ways to address it. It's worth remembering what the ultimate goal is here. The SEND service in BCP that achieves the absolute best outcomes for all children and young people at a cost which is affordable to our council taxpayers. That is what the ultimate goal is. The report is clear that where the current administration I'll say it again. When the current administration took control last year, we're not there yet, but the report shows some good progress that is being made and the direction of travel. The SEND service is a partnership between BCP, Health, Schools and Educationalists, the DFE, parents, carers and the children and young people who use the service. The only way to achieve a good service for all stakeholders to work as a team and foster a good trusting relationship. This report is all about how far we've moved in that direction. I'd like to thank the author, Sharon Muldoon, of the report. I know she isn't actually here today, but Cathy Hadley is in the room, and I'm sure if you have any technical questions that she will be able to help me very much in answer. I'd like to thank the team for all the hard work that's been put into this report, and I hope you found it very interesting to read.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. I just want to see if there are any councillors not in Cabinet in the room who would like to speak. Councillor Canavan, if you could come up, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick point, if I may. I just wanted to thank Councillor Burton for the reassurance that it can come back to Children's for them to have another look at it. I think that would be most appreciated. And I just wondered whether within that we might be able to have a bit more of an update on where we are with safety valve. Some of you will have heard me wax lyrical about it in certain places, but it is an important issue, and I understand that dialogue has to continue. But I think it's important that as and when we can, we do get the opportunity to have another look at where we're up to on safety valve, and particularly to try anyway and offer some reassurance to parents that we are on a journey here. And I'd finally, I think it would be remiss of me not to thank the team for the work that they've done to get us to the results that we have seen in this paper. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan. I just want to briefly ask if there are any other councillors wishing to speak on this who aren't on Cabinet. None indicating. So, Councillor Burton, did you want to go back, or shall we do that? We'll do that in the summer.
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay. Okay, let's open this up to Cabinet. Anyone on Cabinet wishing to speak? Councillor Hannah?
Just in seconding to confirm that Councillor Burton has clarified what the report is all about, but I would want to endorse the thanks to officers for all the work that is being undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, I think I was just going to say something similar. I think it's a really difficult area. We have to do our best by the children that are affected and need to have assessments, and that seems to be increasing. And I know that it's a significant financial risk to the council in terms of the overall costs of this. That seems to be accelerating, and so the work is really important, both for the future of those children and also for the financial stability of the council. And those things are high on the minds of a number of the senior team. I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Mike Cox.
Thanks. Again, I wanted to add thanks to this. There's clearly a significant improvement from where we started from, and everybody involved in that needs to be thanked. I just wanted to bring people back to the financial aspects of SEND, and that the council is in a very, very difficult situation regarding SEND, and we need to bear that in mind. I'm hoping that the recent good news that we've had regarding SEND will mean that in terms of the long term, that financial problem might start to ease. But financially, this council is in a very difficult situation and will require some sort of, not necessarily assistance, but some sort of deferral of what is it, the waiver, in order for us to avoid technically going into 114.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mike Cox. Councillor Adam Richards. Oh, Mr. Adam Richards. Sorry, I didn't mean to give you an unexpected promotion there. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I am the council's Director of Finance. I am not a councillor. Can I just draw your attention to the financial implications of the report? Because I think they set out my ongoing concerns as to how council is supposed to find the cash to cover an annual £30 million difference between what we are currently spending on SEND services and the government grant available. And just to give Cabinet some clarification, after today's meeting, I will be writing to the Director of Finance at DLUC to seek advice as to how we resolve that issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richards, and apologies again. So any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak on this one? Nope. Councillor Burton, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you. Just to come back to the couple of points, and Councillor Canavan, yes, I also have exactly the same question as you. I know we're in a very much of a okay, what next place, and I'm also hopefully we're going to have an answer to that soon. And as soon as I do get an answer, I'll make sure that that is shared as widely as possible, so that we all understand what the possibilities are coming from here. Thank you, Adam, for reminding us, as always. I know it's something which we all try to forget every now and again. I know your job is not to, and I think it actually links back to what Councillor Canavan said. It's all a circle here, isn't it? We've got to get a service which is good, but affordable, and squaring that circle is very difficult. And I do know that coming to one of the public questions, that letters are being written by various people to various places, trying to get some clarification of how we can achieve that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton, for summing up. So we have a proposal and a seconder. Can I take all those in favour of the recommendation? That is unanimous. Thank you. So the last few items of this agenda, thanks again to everyone. We are now moving into the third hour almost. So agenda item 14 is the Cabinet Forward Plan. This was published yesterday with a few new items, so I would draw the attention of all councillors the Forward Plan, which looks at what we will be making decisions on over the next 6, 9, 12 months. And I really think it's a good opportunity for all councillors to have a look at some of the things that they may be concerned about or want to be involved with, whether they want to take that through the scrutiny process or another way. It's a really good way of just seeing what is on our future agenda. So that one is to be noted. We are then going to move on to agenda item 15, which is urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive in accordance with the Constitution. Graham Farrant, CEO, do you have any urgent decisions that you've taken since the last meeting of Cabinet?
No, none since the last meeting, Leader. Deputy Leader. Sorry, we're all committee.
Thank you. So we are now just looking at our final item, which is agenda item 17, our Place and Environment Traffic Signal Obsolescence Grant and Green Light Fund. Now this is an urgent item which has been brought to Cabinet in accordance with the Constitution and pursuant to Regulation 11 of the Local Authorities (brackets executive arrangements) (brackets meetings and access to information) (brackets England Regulations 2012 in brackets the regulations). This item has come to us since the agenda for this meeting was published, but it can't wait until the next meeting, and because of that the paper isn't in the main agenda pack, but it can be viewed in the supplementary pack. So this will be presented and proposed by Councillor Hadley. Is there a seconder? Oh, I'm actually going to second that one myself, as it relates to sort of road safety in one way or another. Councillor Hadley, over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Yes, I mean, there are a number of ways in which we try and grab grant money from the government, and very often these things are on very short timelines that we then find subsequently they shift the timeline, and I think this is one of those. So we applied some considerable time ago for this. It's about renewal of existing traffic signals is one part of it, and then the other is about green light. So trying to enhance traffic flows throughout the area by ensuring that well, they call it a green light fund, but effectively that making travel more efficient where we can. And we were successful in getting the grant. We were one of a reasonably small number of authorities nationally that were successful, so that's to celebrate. It's money coming in, which is always good. It will be capital money to be spent on a very specific purpose. So it's something that I think we should welcome, and the paper obviously details the work that we need to undertake. And as with a lot of grants, we also need to do the work quite quickly, which is part of why it's an urgent decision to take. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Are there any members who are not members of Cabinet in the room who wish to speak on this? Nope, I'm not seeing any indication. I just wanted to add as well a huge congratulations to the transport and infrastructure teams in the council. I think it's always wonderful when we do get money granted to us rather than money taken away, and doesn't happen as often as maybe it should, considering our funding position, but it's really good to see that our infrastructure will be updated through the Capital Grant Fund. Can I see if any members of Cabinet would like to speak on this? Nope. Councillor Hadley, all summed up and everything?
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. So can I take all those in favour of the recommendation to accept? Thank you. That is unanimous. So that draws the agenda to an end, and all that's left for me to do is wish you a great rest of your day and formally close the meeting. Thank you.